Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading The Turn of a Hero, or What If Naruto Left Jiraiya and Betrayed Konoha. So sit back, relax and enjoy. In the center of the once proud village of Konoha, which was now a war zone for the moment, one brown-skinned tight outfit wearing mint-haired girl could be seen running down a street with many Konoha shinobi trying to fight back the horde of white Zetsus that had invaded just about over an hour ago or so. It wasn't that it was too hard to take the weird-looking individuals. No, far from it. It had to do with the damn large numbers that they had invaded. If you took one out, 3 more would pop out of nowhere. And not to mention the fact that they could show up randomly from the ground or from walls on buildings and such. With stealth and numbers on their size, it wasn't much of a surprise to see many dead Konoha shinobi bodies on the ground. A random Chunin, having brought down a white Zetsu, immediately caught sight of the running Fu. Not recognizing her and therefore labeling her as an enemy, he rushed at her with a simple kunai in hand. Seeing this, Fu momentarily scowled before she inhaled deeply, exhaling a moment later and shooting her sparkly substance from her mouth and onto the Chunin, which instantly blinded him. Using this opportunity, Fu rushed at him in his temporary blind state and quickly took the kunai from his hands. She then proceeded to immediately behead him like she had done with Yugao. After the now corpse of the Chunin fell to the ground, Fu went on her way, throwing the kunai on the ground behind her. Moron, thought Fu with another scowl. I don't freaking have time for this. Thankfully, all other Konoha shinobi in the area were too busy trying to fight off the white Zetsus in order to pay any attention to her. It looked as if the Hyuga clan had not arrived here so far. Great, thought Fu sarcastically. Without any stupid civilians to ask, how in the hell am I supposed to find my way to where the damn Hyuga compound is? This just plainly sucks. Why couldn't they have held off their attacks for just 10 more minutes or so? Calm down, advised Chomei from within her. Getting frustrated will not help you at all. I know. You could always ask one of the Konoha shinobi, suggested Chomei. Yeah, like they're going to tell me anything, replied Fu with a roll of her eyes at that thought. Before Chomei could respond, another being made his newly subconsciously arrived presence. Fu, Chomei, are you there? Asked Kurama in a calm tone. Kyubi, said Fu in surprise. How are you in my head? You're not sealed in me. Kurama chuckled. It's the bond between Jinchurikis and their bijou, if you will. Both you and Chomei are close enough for me to communicate with you subconsciously. It would be possible for the rest if they were close enough as well. I see. What is it that you want, Kyubi? Asked Chomei. It's a message from Naruto, answered Kurama in a more serious tone. There is a special task that he requires from the two of you. And that is? Asked Fu, but also wondering why Naruto hadn't just simply asked her himself. You should know that the Hyuga clan is now on our side because Hinata's becoming the new clan head through the help of Niji, correct? Questioned Kurama. Yeah, we know that already, said Fu in response. Well, soon they will be of no use anymore, like in a couple of hours at best, continued Kurama. And why is that? Asked Chomei. That Uchiha woman should have arrived by then with the forces from Kyumo, answered Kurama, referring to Mikoto. When that happens, we will have no further use from the Hyugas any longer, including Hinata. Even Niji as well? Asked Fu with dread. Truth of the matter was that she sort of liked the stoic if not a bit innocent Hyuga. He was cool as far as she was concerned, even if she didn't spend too much time getting to know him save for the small period of time that she had spent in Konoha. Kurama paused at this, as if thinking of what to say as an answer. No, not Niji, he finally answered. But everyone else, don't show any mercy. Is Naruto really okay with this? Asked Fu. Yes, he is, answered Kurama with no hesitation whatsoever. The only reason that he even agreed for that Hyuga girl to be part of this is if a situation like this were to happen, as well as for his private entertainment. That is all. Otherwise, he would have simply killed her. He doesn't care about her in the slightest. I see. Don't let us down, Fu, said Kurama, cutting his link with the two afterwards. Are you sure that you want to do this? Asked Chome quietly. Yes, I do, was the immediate response from the mint-hair-colored Jinchuriki. It's not like I care about Hinata either. She was just simply another person that was going to be killed eventually. But it seems that I might be the one to have to do it. Chome didn't respond. He was going to follow whatever Fu's decision would be. He only wanted to make sure that this is what she truly wanted. He didn't have any care for the rest of the human race, save for perhaps the other Jinchuriki and Naruto. Then let's go. Fu smirked as she picked up her pace. Yeah. But I have to find them first though. With that, she continued on her way through the burning village. Back on the other side of the village where the once proud Uchiha compound had once stood, things were starting to become even more and more extreme. On one side on Tsunade's right stood her former and now revived teammate, Jiraiya. On her other side stood the person that was responsible for her even coming back to the village 3 years ago, Naruto. Naruto currently had the same twisted and excited grin that was becoming more and more frequent on his face ever since he had acquired the Saikatsu Gakari from the stone tablet and where all of this had begun. Jiraiya's face was currently that of the one that he had worn during the 2 previous wars that he had fought. As much as it pained him, he recognized the fact that the Naruto that he had met and come to know was truly gone, his killing of Iruka having shown him that. The Rinnegan, thought Fukasaku from his spot on Jiraiya's left shoulder as he noticed the legendary ringed patterned eyes from within the wild spinning crimson energy. Could he be the child of the prophecy? In that case, it seems that instead of being brought up to save the world, he will now destroy it. A sad thought indeed. Shima for her part merely gazed at Naruto with narrowed eyes. There in front of her was the person that had killed Jiraiya whom she cared deeply for despite what her everyday actions showed, as well as to what said silver-haired Rinnegan wielder had done to her homeland those 3 years ago. More toads, said Naruto while glancing at the 2 small toads on both of Jiraiya's shoulders. I've already seen them enough for my tastes today, or well, forever really. Shima growled slightly before pointing an accusing finger at the now amused Naruto. You have no right to talk to us that way. Not after what you did to us. Feel lucky that I only did so little, retorted Naruto with a roll of his eyes. If I were the person that I am now, 3 years ago, I would have simply slaughtered you all. What are you talking about? Asked Jiraiya with a confused look. The other shinobi on the sidelines were also in a confused state save for Tsunade who immediately understood what was going on. This must be about how he broke the summoning contract with the toads, thought Tsunade in realization. She didn't know how Naruto had done it either since the toads hadn't told her anything either. Naruto smirked at Jiraiya. So, they didn't tell you, did they? I'm not surprised really, I kind of expected that. Be quiet you, shouted Shima in outrage. Fukasaku for his part merely watched this in silence. There really was no point in hiding this. It was done. Nothing they could do about it now. If only he had realized that Naruto had left Jiraiya though, he never would have agreed with the termination of the contract. And maybe then, Jiraiya would have been able to find the now silver-haired Naruto and prevent all of this from ever occurring. That was a big mistake on my part, thought Fukasaku with a silent sigh. Haven't you ever wondered how I was able to terminate my contract with the toads? Questioned Naruto with a slight shake of his head. Jiraiya's silence was the response that Naruto received. Assuming from your silence, I'm going to take that as a yes, said Naruto with a chuckle filled with humor in it. Then he shrugged. It's all very simple, really. I wanted to end my contract with the toads. Now, all that I needed to do was to get them to want to end it with me as well. And thankfully since you hadn't contacted them immediately, they didn't know that I had already ditched you by then. You gave me about a week head start, after all, finished Naruto with another smirk. Jiraiya flinched at the reminder. At first, he had only thought that Naruto was training overnights like he had always done in the past, but that had not been the case this time. Naruto then sighed. The easiest way would have been to just simply kill them, but like I have already said, I wasn't that kind of person at that time. So, I had to think of another way. Well, it was Kurama that thought of this, not me. But they don't have to know that, finished Naruto within his mind. You're welcome, was the only response from said Bijou. Which was what? Asked Jiraiya, wanting to know this. He defiled our homeland, answered Fukasaku before Naruto could. Every single sacred place including the great elder's home, he completely decimated them. He completely destroyed sacred writings as well from thousands of years ago, even going as far as to burn some of them. My prankster side at work, commented Naruto. That's not a prank, you brat, screamed Shima in outrage. They were sacred items to us that meant a lot to every single toad that lives there. Naruto shrugged again, shouldering his sword in a bored manner. And? I'm not a toad. I'm a human. I don't give a rat's ass about something like that, especially books. How did you even get there in the first place? Asked Jiraiya before Shima could burst out in rage once more. I simply tricked Gamakichi into letting me in, answered Naruto like it was nothing. He still hasn't gotten over that. Fukasaku muttered. Like I've already told you, I don't care, replied Naruto before his face turned dark. You toads should be grateful that I was still naive back then. That I was still ignorant as to how this rotten shinobi world really works. That I just didn't simply kill all of you and be done with it. But now, that's not the case. Naruto gripped his sword more tightly as the crimson energy around him began to pick up again. You're all just a useless tool to me now. And just like I have already killed Gamabunta, I'm going to do the same with you. That shocked both Fukasaku and Shima to the core. That Gamabunta was dead now. Jiraiya momentarily frowned before going on all fours, discarding his wooden sandals. Both of his hands and feet began to grow, taking the appearance of that of a toad as well as his face. Now this is interesting, thought Naruto as he prepared to attack Jiraiya. But he wasn't prepared for Tsunade to suddenly appear in front of Jiraiya. Oh, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Are you going to join us, Bachan? Tsunade-sama. Thought guy from the side. Sum was simply looking at Naruto in anger while Ibiki had a calm look on his face. Tsunade frowned slightly before reaching into her green jacket-like clothing that she wore, taking out a small book a second later. Naruto narrowed his eyes as soon as they landed on the book. Could that be? This is the Journal of the Sandaime, stated Tsunade, immediately confirming Naruto's thoughts. Here, it lists everything that happened during his reign as Hokage as well as the attack on Yuzu. But Naruto already knew this. That was the reason that he had been trying to acquire it in the first place. At first, he had decided to go after it first but then changed his mind, preferring to go after the Saikatsu Gakari first rather than the journal. But it seemed that Tsunade had saved him the trouble of looking for it in the first place. Is that so? Said Naruto with a fake curious look on his face, feigning to not know of the journal's existence until now. And what of it? Asked Naruto. Tsunade's frown increased before she threw the journal on the ground, right in between where she and Naruto currently stood. It says exactly how the strike force from Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri managed to bypass the defenses of Yuzu that night. Naruto was silent for once. This was the last thing that he wanted to know as of now. The scroll that the spy that he had planted in Danzo's root had given him mention of the journal's existence. Naruto was confident that the Sandaime had known more about the attack than of what he had let on. And it seemed that he was right after all. It was a combined effort, continued Tsunade, between Danzo and Orochimaru. Just like I thought Naruto but allowed Tsunade to continue. Orochimaru was in Yuzu for personal visit, began Tsunade while holding back a snort. But Naruto didn't. And since he was from Konoha, no one suspected him. While there, he somehow gained access to the information of how to dispel the whirlpools around Yuzu as well as the barrier, continued Tsunade with another frown. That was something that the journal had not specified, which was how exactly Orochimaru got hold of that information. Orochimaru then gave this to Danzo, who in turn sold it to Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri, while giving Orochimaru protection and help with his experiments, finished Tsunade with a scowl on her face. That was the whole reason that Orochimaru had even taken part in that. Simply for the funding and protection that Danzo could provide him with the experiments that he was beginning to conduct at that time. And Danzo? He had just wanted Yuzu out of the picture, period. They were already going to obtain Kushina, which was all that Danzo truly wanted. So you see, it was all Danzo and Orochimaru that were responsible, not the village, stated Tsunade, hoping that this gamble would pay off. Naruto for his part had been silent the whole time until Tsunade had finished talking. Once she did, however, he bursted in laughter. Ha ha ha. That's rich, Tsunade. Thinking that with just this, I would call all of this off. Oh, that's just too much, said Naruto, bringing his laughter under control. Once he did, he looked at Tsunade with unmasked amusement. Let me fill you in on something, Senju. I already knew of the journal's existence before this. I also had already suspected that our friend Danzo was somehow involved in this. I'll admit, though, that I didn't think that Orochimaru had also played his hands in this. But that's simply irrelevant at this point. But to think that you would think that I'm stupid enough to fall for something like that. Naruto shook his head in mock shame. I'm disappointed in you, Tsunade. Tsunade's hopes had just died off right then and there. Not paying attention to this, Naruto continued. The very fact that the old man wrote that in his journal proves that he knew of everything but didn't even lift a damn finger to stop any of it. Besides, even if that wasn't the case, the attack will go on. Nothing can stop it now. You, said Tsunade while grinding her teeth together in anger. She had just made her last bet in trying to stop Naruto quietly without a confrontation, but she had just lost it in a matter of seconds. The betrayal of Yuzu, which resulted in the destruction of my clan, is just half of the reason that I'm doing all of this, explained Naruto. The other half is for my own benefit. I suspected as much, thought Jiraiya in remorse from behind Tsunade. This village casted me out without a good reason, so now I'm just simply going to return the favor. That's all there is to it, stated Naruto. No other hidden motive than that. And you can call me an immature brat for doing all of this for a reason like that as well, but I just don't give a damn anymore. Not with all of this power that I now possess. And as if to agree with him, the sword on Naruto's shoulder began to glow even more strongly, as well as the crimson energy surrounding him. Tsunade could only take a step back. There was nothing else for her to say about this. If that's all, shall we get on with this, said Naruto, his grin from before starting to return. He then rushed at the unsuspecting Tsunade only for his path to be blocked off by none other than Jiraiya. He's gotten faster, observed Naruto before his smirk got even larger. Perfect. Kurama Rasengan. You're gonna have to do better than that. Sensei, screamed Naruto as the crimson energy surrounding him successfully blocked off Jiraiya's attack. I'm just getting started, retorted Jiraiya, trying to penetrate Naruto's shield with his attack. Tsunade could only shield her eyes as a big explosion resulted from the collision as well as with the others present. In another part of the village, another confrontation was currently taking place. And that was between two Hyugas and two medical shinobi. I need to inform Tsunade-sama of this, thought Shizune while preparing herself in case Neji attacked. Shizune-san. Go, said Sakura with determination. I can take care of things here. But Tsunade-sama needs to know what's taking place here. Neji snorted at that. Did the pink-hair medic really think that she could handle him? He didn't even think if she could take Hinata, let alone with him in the mix. Sakura. Muttered Shizune, clearly surprised. "And here they call Hyuga's arrogant," muttered Hinata with a roll of her eyes. "Just go," replied Sakura. Standing there for just a moment longer, Shizune jumped towards a nearby rooftop, taking off towards Tsunade's position. Seeing this, Niji was immediately right behind her. Sakura was about to stop him when she suddenly jumped back from her position thanks to Hinata appearing in it a moment later, right arm extended. Niji didn't even glance back as he followed behind Shizune, intent on stopping her. "You don't have time to worry about someone else right now, Sakura," said Hinata while taking her gentle fist stance. "Because you should be worried about your own safety right now." Sakura gritted her teeth in frustration at this. "We're both at a disadvantage here," thought Sakura, quickly assessing the situation. "We're both deadly at close combat, meaning that we can't get too close to each other. Otherwise, it could end bad for either of us." Hinata was also thinking of this at the moment. Her only chance would be to somehow incapacitate Sakura's arms as quickly as possible in order to stop her monstrous strength, the same being said about Sakura. Hinata's arms and hands were her best weapon after all. Whoever accomplishes this first will be the winner of this battle, thought Hinata. Thinking the same thing as Hinata, Sakura decided to rush at the said female Hyuga in order to catch her off guard. But Hinata was prepared for this. Shugohaku Rokujuan Sho. "Damn it," screamed Sakura as she stopped herself from hitting the newly formed barrier around Hinata that was made entirely of chakra-based blades. "What is this jutsu?" wondered Sakura, having never seen it before. "This is both my ultimate defense as well as my offense," stated Hinata from within the chakra barrier. "Offense?" repeated Sakura, obviously confused. Hinata smirked. "That's right, now, die." Before her eyes, Sakura saw the chakra-based barrier turn into extremely thin and sharp blades, all that were pointed straight at her. Seeing what Hinata was trying to do, Sakura punched the ground beneath her feet with all her might, causing a crater to occur beneath her as well as for it to spread towards Hinata. It was like an earthquake really. "No!" screamed Hinata in her mind, frustrated as she lost her balance, making her lose control of her chakra momentarily, which caused her barrier to be dispelled. The jutsu required extreme concentration and chakra control. Hinata then jumped backwards in order to dodge the incoming Sakura that appeared from the sky. Said pink-haired Kunoichi delivered another strong punch to the ground, causing it to shake for a moment as if there were a second earthquake occurring. "Damn that strength of hers," thought Hinata as she landed a safe distance from where Sakura now stood. "I'm going to beat the life out of you," exclaimed Sakura, fixing her gloves for a moment. Hinata smirked at her. "What is this? Would you possibly be jealous that Naruto-kun chose me, but not you? Well, you are useless after all. Just like you were back in the academy." Sakura was quiet about this. Was she jealous? But she couldn't be. She loved Sasuke, right? "It doesn't matter what you think of me," replied Sakura after a moment of silence. "I'm still bringing you in for betraying us as well as for what you did to your father. That's a promise. You can count on that." It was pretty much clear to Sakura now that Hinata had something to do with the death of Hayashi so that she could become the clan head. Niji was probably involved in that as well. Hinata ran a hand through her hair that was currently still tied in a ponytail. "We'll see about that, Sakura. And you're also right. I was the one that killed my father," said Hinata like it was nothing, completely shocking Sakura. "But I really don't feel like wasting any more time on you. After all, I want to see Naruto-kun again." Sakura didn't respond to that, but she didn't have to. Not waiting for a response, Hinata brought both of her hands forward in front of her. Sakura took a step back as she felt the air around the girl Hyuga begin to change. What is she up to now, thought Sakura. Juho Sashiken. Two lion-shaped shrouds of chakra formed around both of Hinata's hands. Seeing this, Sakura readied herself. She didn't know exactly what this attack could do, but she knew that it would be bad if she were to be hit by them. She thinks that I'm coming to her, thought Hinata in amusement. Well, you're mistaken. Sakura's eyes widened as Hinata extended her right hand forward, which caused a third lion-shaped shroud of chakra to appear from the right hand, which was shot straight at her. It's a long-range attack too, thought Sakura, clearly surprised at this revelation. A second before the attack impacted her, Sakura brought her left fist forward, smashing it with the chakra attack and succeeding in repelling it. Hinata narrowed her eyes as she saw this. So, she used her own chakra to dissipate my own when she hit it with her fist, eh? Clever. But let's see how you handle multiple of them. Sakura frowned as she saw more of the incoming attacks coming at her. Not good, she screamed in her mind. She brought both of her fists forward this time and started to smash all of the attacks that were coming her way. But there were simply too many of them. Eventually, she was starting to become overwhelmed. So busy in trying to repel all the attacks as well as to not get hit by them, Sakura wasn't ready to defend herself as Hinata suddenly appeared behind her. No, thought Sakura as Hinata brought both of her still lion-shaped shrouds of chakra-covered hands forward, aiming for Sakura's shoulders. This is it for you, stated Hinata as she hit both of Sakura's shoulders, pushing said medic shinobi a few feet away. Sakura screamed in pain as she felt all sensation on her shoulders disappear as she was pushed forward from behind. She slowly turned around, which proved to be a mistake as Hinata was in front of her the very next moment, bringing both of her hands forward again and attacking her stomach area this time. Sakura screamed for a second time as she flew back, creating a new small crater with her body as she landed on the ground on her back. That's it for you, Sakura, said Hinata with another smirk as she walked towards the downed Sakura, intent on finishing the job. Here was the girl that had had the very thing that Hinata had always wanted, which had been for Naruto's love. And she hated Sakura for it. After all, she loved Naruto, so why should he fall for another girl with said girl not having the slightest bit of feelings for him? It's just not fair, muttered Hinata as she stood over the body of Sakura. But now, I get to pay you back, she finished with a dark smirk as she brought her left hand upward. The next moment though was one of the most surprising for Hinata. Before she knew it, Sakura was up from the ground and in front of her with her right arm around her neck, ready to slam her into the ground. What? Screamed Hinata in outrage. Okasho. The next moment, Hinata felt the greatest pain that she had ever felt coursing through her entire body as Sakura slammed her into the ground, creating a bigger crater than any of the other ones before. You. Was the only thing that Hinata could say before blood started to come out of her mouth. A moment afterwards, Sakura fell to the ground on her back with her feet touching Hinata's as a result of this. You shouldn't even be able to use chakra anymore, said Hinata as more pain began to spread through her body as she laid in another makeshift crater. You aimed for my shoulders, so I merely pushed all of my chakra to my hands as much as I could, explained Sakura, no longer being able to feel her upper body other than her head. But her arms should have been useless, screamed Hinata in her mind before it clicked. You. Sakura chuckled. Yeah, I broke my bones in my arms as a result of my forcing my last attack, she stated, already guessing what Hinata was going to say. Why would you go that far? Asked Hinata, clearly surprised that Sakura would actually go that far in order to defeat her. Because I don't want to be a nuisance anymore, answered Sakura. I also didn't want to lose to you either. I'm going to make you pay for everything that you have done. I promised you that, after all. Before Hinata could respond, both Kunoichi heard clapping. Turning their heads left, well for Hinata it was to the right, they both saw Fu sitting on the edge of a nearby building who was also the one currently clapping. Well done, you two, said Fu with a small grin. I must say that fight really surprised me. Maybe you two aren't so useless after all. Fu, said Hinata with a small growl. Fu smirked at the downed Hyuga. Well, nice seeing you again. I must say that you have changed from the last time that I saw you. What are you doing here? Asked Hinata, interrupting Fu. Fu shrugged as she stood up before jumping off from the edge of the rooftop and landing in between both Hinata and Sakura. Well, I was here to rendezvous with both you and Niji, but it seems that will no longer be necessary. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Hinata with a scowl. Sakura for her part merely watched all of this in silence. It means that you are now a useless tool for Naruto, answered Fu with a dark undertone in her voice. An useless tool that I'm here now to discard for him. That's not true, denied Hinata with wide eyes and a frightened expression on her face. He said that dash. He lied, interrupted Fu as her green armor came to life. You were nothing more than a nuisance to him. He never cared for you from the beginning. That is all there is to it. No, screamed Hinata. That can't be true. But it is, replied Fu as the scales on her right arm began to grow. You're through, Hinata. Goodbye. Hinata screamed one more time before Fu silenced her by shooting her scales from her armor right at Hinata's head, effectively killing her in an instant. Sakura could only watch this with wide eyes. How could you dash? That is of no importance to you, monkey, interrupted Fu, calling Sakura by the nickname that she had given her. After all, you're next. Fu then turned to the downed and now frightened Sakura, intent on doing the same thing to her before she found herself unable to use or to move her body. What? Said Fu in surprise. Shadow possession, a success. Hearing this, Fu moved her eyes to the side only to see a kneeling male Konoha shinobi with a female one next to him. Shikamaru, Ino, said Sakura in obvious happiness at seeing the two familiar faces. Fu was beginning to see that this was going to be an annoying day for her. Getsuga. Naruto growled in frustration as he saw the fast approaching attack from the Inuzuka clan. Out of my way, he shouted, completely annoyed as he repelled the attack with his Rinnegan. Sum and her partner dog were sent flying back. She's letting her anger get the best of her, thought Ibiki with a shake of his head as he stood next to Tsunade in front of a kneeling and panting Jiraiya that currently had no left arm and was in the process of regenerating it. He's strong, stated Fukasaku. We know that much, retorted Tsunade with a slight roll of her eyes. Guy was currently in the process of attacking Naruto, trying to get around the crimson energy but not getting much luck of succeeding. Your taijutsu will not work on me, said Naruto as he extended his left arm forward. The next moment, Guy felt himself being pulled forward. Not good, screamed the green jumpsuit wearing shinobi within his mind. But before he could be pulled entirely towards the blade of Naruto's sword, Guy fell on the ground. What? Said Guy, clearly confused. He then gazed at the unmoving Naruto in front of him in confusion. He's under my genjutsu, answered Ibiki from his spot next to Tsunade. It seems that he's still weak against that. I wonder about that, thought Tsunade with narrowed eyes before they all heard the sudden laughter that emanated from Naruto. Ha ha ha. You actually think that simple genjutsu will stop me, screamed Naruto before gripping his sword and rushing at Guy. He broke free, exclaimed Ibiki in surprise. I can see that, retorted Tsunade as she rushed at Naruto as well, intent on stopping him. Guy was on the defensive, dodging all the strikes from Naruto's sword. He's fast, thought Naruto before turning his attention up to the air to see an incoming Tsunade with her left leg raised up. Tsutenkaku. Fuck, thought Naruto before using his Rinnegan. Shinra Tensei. Both Tsunade and Guy were sent flying back just like Tsum had been, too many damn nuisances, thought Naruto in complete frustration. Oi, Jiraiya. How long do you plan to hide behind these idiots? Jiraiya frowned before standing up, his left arm having been regenerated. I'm not hiding, he retorted. I simply still have comrades unlike you. Naruto chuckled. That's where you're wrong. I also have comrades. The difference, though, is that I don't need my comrades to fight my battles for me. I'm more than capable of handling things on my own. We'll see about that, said Tsunade as she immediately took her place back on Jiraiya's side with Guy standing next to Ibiki and Tsum next to Guy. We will stop you. Naruto was silent for a few moments before he broke down in laughter yet again. Have you forgotten that it was me that took on all of the Hokages as well as Madara with his brother and still won, said Naruto. Jiraiya's eyes widened at this as well as all of the others present except for Tsunade's, as she had been there to see that happen after all. I was just simply toying with you, seeing as I want to enjoy this as long as possible, continued Naruto, his crazed look returning. But if you want me to show you just how helpless your situation exactly is, then allow me. As soon as he finished, Naruto's Susanoo appeared around him in its complete form with both swords in hand. The crimson energy gave the already red existing shroud of the Susanoo an even more sinister look to it. The Susanoo, thought Fukasaku, completely in shock. The same could be said about the others. He. Naruto paused as he heard laughter coming from somewhere in his head, but it didn't come from Kurama. You want to use my real power, don't you? What the hell is this? All others present watched as the crimson energy began to grow even more powerful, completely surrounding both Naruto and his Susanoo in a giant tornado-like form. What the hell is going on? Screamed Tsum in complete frustration. Something tells me that we're not going to like the answer to that, muttered Tsunade as the wind began to pick up again. They shielded their eyes again as they could only stand there, awaiting to see what would happen. Naruto soon found himself floating in an empty dark space of nothingness. It reminded him of where the Jubi currently was. This is Uzumaki. Naruto, I've been expecting you. Naruto looked around as the voice seemed to be coming from every direction. Who is this? He calmly asked. It wouldn't do him any good if he were to suddenly have a panic attack. That is an interesting question. I suppose you may call me by what you named me as, the Saikatsugakari. Outside of the village on a nearby cliff overlooking the village, 5 individuals wearing the Akatsuki uniform could be seen standing next to each other. Bastards, they've already started without us. Shut up, Suigetsu. You should be grateful that you're even here at all. Suigetsu turned his head away from the angry-looking redhead. Whatever, Karen. Konoha, said Yujito in a soft tone as she looked at the said village that was currently being attacked. Don't worry, kitten. Somewhere down there, your mate is currently causing havoc. Yujito didn't even bother to correct her bijou by this point. Bee merely watched the village in silence from behind his shades. So this is Konoha, commented the Hachibi from within Bee's mind. Kyubi. Sasuke gazed at the village for a moment before his eternal Manjikyu subconsciously activated. Let's go, said Sasuke as he jumped off the cliff and down towards the forest below, intent on arriving as soon as possible to his target. The others simply followed behind him. Uzumaki. Naruto, I've been expecting you. Naruto simply grinned in response as he continued to float in the lifeless, empty, and dark space. Expecting me, huh? He repeated with amusement. That's funny. I'm pretty sure that we had already gotten pretty acquainted. Well, you were wrong. It seems that you don't know everything about me just yet, do you? I'm pretty sure that you already know the answer to that, so there really is no point in you asking it. For that matter, don't beat around the bush either. Just what is it that you want to tell me? An impatient one you are, I see. Naruto humphed slightly at that. It has nothing to do with impatience, okay, maybe a little. But you should also know what's currently taking place right now and why I want to be out there to enjoy it. All around him, Naruto heard laughter, but it wasn't as dark as before. It was more of an amused laughter belonging to a person that was currently enjoying what he or she was watching at the moment. Yes, I know. You're trying to destroy the place that you once called home, ironic, isn't it? You betrayed them in the same way that they betrayed your clan. I'm not going to deny that, stated Naruto, crossing his arms in front of armored chest. I knew from the beginning that going down this path wouldn't make me any better than them. In fact, you could say that in some ways I'm worse than they are. In what ways exactly? Naruto chuckled. Once again, you probably already know the answer to that already, but I'll humor you. Naruto paused for a moment before continuing. You could say that I'm simply using my clan's betrayal as a justification to destroy this village. Not hearing a response, Naruto continued, even if that weren't the case, even I have to admit that some of the people in the village aren't exactly guilty of what occurred to my clan. And yet, you continue to push forward down your dark path. Naruto chuckled for a second time. You didn't hear me. I said if I didn't have another motive for doing what I'm doing. But that's not the case here. I find the whole village guilty for what they did to me. Are you certain about that? From what I've gathered, everything that was put in place was for your own protection, not your harm. As well as to the fact that it is more of the older generation's fault for your past. Naruto grinned at that. You've been looking through my memories, haven't you? Once more, there wasn't a response. Seeing this, Naruto carried on. Maybe you're right. I don't deny the fact that what Yondaime did was for what he thought were honorable intentions, if you will. He was the Hokage, after all. But that doesn't justify what he did as a parent. He left me alone in the hornet's nest, if you will. And for that, I will never forgive him. But you forgave your mother, interrupted the voice that came from all directions. I know for a fact that while she was inside your mind for that period of time, your minds overlapped together in some instances. You saw what happened that night, and yet, you still forgave her but not your father. I can't help myself but ask why. Why did you forgive her? Naruto closed his eyes when hearing the question. He was silent for a few moments before answering, honestly, I really don't know why. It just happened. Before long, I found myself trusting her completely as well as not feeling anything negative of her. I guess it has to do with the fact that I know that she felt sorry for how things went that night and that she wants to atone in any way possible. Her joining me is proof of that, I suppose. I see, and you're also right about what you said about the older generation being at fault, continued Naruto, his eyes still closed. But their children carried their sins. I don't have a single doubt in my mind of what they would have done if they had known just what exactly I was from the beginning. They would have judged me just like their parents. That's how we humans are, after all. We fear the unknown, those things that we cannot comprehend or understand fully. That is why I have no remorse for them when they die. Naruto then shrugged as he opened his eyes, Rinnegan activated and glowing as it was surrounded by the darkness all around the empty and bare space. But you could also say that I just simply don't give a fuck about them at all, period. And why should I? If there is one thing that I have learned all these years is that things such as trust and companionship are hard to come by, especially in this current rotting shinobi world. They were never my comrades in the first place. I was just simply a tool for this village. And at what end? If that was how I would have lived my life, then I happily choose the life that I'm currently living. At least here, I'm not a tool for anyone. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto merely stared at the darkness all around in silence, simply awaiting for the voice to explain itself. Everyone is a tool at the hands of destiny. No one can escape its grasps, not even you. No matter how strong you become. It was the same in your past life, or should I say as the Rikudo Sennin. He too was simply a tool as well. Although this time around, it seems that things will go the opposite of how they did in the past. And what do you mean by that? There was chuckling once more. You should know the answer to that already, Uzumaki. In the past, you fought for peace. Now, you fight for destruction. In the past, you were a creator. Now, you are a destroyer. In the past, you created this flawed shinobi world. Now, you will destroy it. Naruto was silent at this, knowing for it to be true. It's a prank from fate itself, I suppose. That this is how things turned out to be. And what about you? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Where exactly do you fit in all of this? That is another interesting question and one which I do not have an answer to. I'm just simply another tool, quite literally of course. I've just simply been around long enough to see some of the strings. But not your own, said Naruto with a small grin. Another chuckle. That's correct. But that is where our conversation leads us to. The whole reason that you even created me as well as for giving me the name of Saiketsugakari all those years ago. Realization struck Naruto as fast as lightning hits the ground. So you were the one that was giving me the knowledge of how to use you. Correct. The Rikudo Sennin gave you the knowledge of where to find me as well as to unlock the seal that was placed around me, but I was the one that gave you the knowledge of how to use me as well as how my power works. But not entirely so. There's a few things that I left out on purpose. And those are, asked Naruto. It ties with the whole reason that you even sealed me into that tablet in the first place. Naruto could tell that the sword, or Saiketsugakari, was somewhat bitter about that fact. But Naruto simply stayed quiet, allowing for the sword to continue in order to know what exactly happened to have forced the Rikudo Sennin to seal this sword in such a strategic manner. After all, none of the other tools that he created had been sealed. So there had to be a reason. I'm the first of the many weapons that he created that became known as the treasured tools. I'm also the most important one for one very important reason. And that reason would be, it was through me that the Rikudo Sennin managed to defeat the Jubi in order to seal it within himself. Shikamaru, Ino. Don't worry, Sakura, exclaimed Ino from Shikamaru's side to the downed Sakura. We'll stop her. It seemed that she had already gotten over her father's death as well as Choji's. Or well, she didn't really have a choice at the moment. She couldn't sulk in the middle of the battlefield, after all. That would just be plain stupid. More of you show up, muttered Fu with a sigh as Shikamaru's jutsu still controlled her for the moment. I should have suspected that you would be a traitor in the end, Fu, said Shikamaru with narrowed eyes. You were the only person that Naruto ever hung out with when he was here, after all. Fu chuckled at that while glancing at them, seeing as she still didn't have control of her body yet. What? Are you jealous? 'Cause if you are, that would just be creepy, you know. Shikamaru simply ignored the joke. Seeing that you currently can't go anywhere right now, why don't you tell me where Naruto is at the moment? Fu's eyes widened in a comical fashion as she heard this before she started to giggle. In a few seconds, she fell into a laughing fit. Ha ha ha. Oh my, don't tell me that you're actually thinking of fighting against Naruto. Shikamaru's silence was the response that the mint-haired Jinchuriki received from Nara. Whoa, you're serious? Asked Fu with a surprised look, obviously having believed that Shikamaru had only been joking. Seeing this, Shikamaru frowned. What exactly is the problem with that? A second later, Fu fell into another laughing fit which annoyed Shikamaru. Oh Kami! And here I thought that you were the smart one, exclaimed Fu in obvious amusement. And why shouldn't she? Here was a single Chunin saying that he was planning on defeating Naruto of all people. Granted, said Chunin was well above the skill of said rank but nowhere near Naruto's level at all either. Fu knew that she herself didn't stand a chance against the said Rinnegan wielder. She also knew that she could defeat the Nara in front of her. The math did itself right there. If he couldn't defeat her who could not defeat Naruto, then there was no chance in hell that he would be able to defeat him. Let me tell you something that you have obviously still not fully comprehended just yet, began Fu with a small smirk. And what is that? Asked Shikamaru. Fu looked straight at him with clear amusement present in her orange eyes. You still think of him as the person that he once was, just like the monkey next to me does, she finished while glancing at the downed Sakura. Hearing this, Sakura growled. You don't know anything about us. If she could, Fu would have shrugged. You're right, I don't. But I do know of the present Naruto. And let me tell you that he doesn't care about any of you in the slightest, just like he didn't with the sleeping beauty over there," retorted Fu, referring to the now dead Hinata. Shikamaru gazed at the ground momentarily in respect to Hinata. He still didn't know that Hinata had been a traitor either. "You're just simply a fangirl," stated Fu at Sakura with no remorse. "I may not know much about any of you, but I at least know that much about you. All you've ever cared about was Uchiha Sasuke, which begs the question as to why you're even trying so hard to rescue Naruto in the first place. For what I have heard, you didn't even care about him in the slightest in the past." Sakura simply growled again. Damn, how bad she wanted for her upper body to be healed so that she could be able to beat the girl in front of her to the ground. "That has nothing to do with you," she said through gritted teeth. "Fair enough, I guess," was Fu's response before she turned her attention back to Shikamaru and Ino. "Now, I guess that you two will not let me go quietly, am I right? Because I really need to be somewhere right now." Shikamaru frowned. "I already asked you once, where is Naruto?" Fu sighed. "It was funny the first time. Now, it's just plain stupid and annoying. But if you really want to know." Both Shikamaru's and Ino's eyes widened in surprise as the red chakra began to appear all around Fu's armor-covered body. "If you really want to know, you'll just have to beat it out of me," exclaimed Fu as she broke out of the control of Shikamaru's jutsu. "She's free," he shouted. Ino was about to perform her jutsu but wasn't prepared for Fu to be already in front of her in the next moment. "How did you dash?" She didn't get to finish as Fu sent a powerful kick to her gut, sending her tumbling back. Kage-senban Rendan. Fu simply stood there as the shadow needles attempted to pierce her armor. Key words are attempted. "What?" said Shikamaru in shock at the fact that his attack was repelled by Fu's armor. "That's not going to work on me while I have this on," stated Fu as she rushed at the now worried Nara. Shikamaru jumped back from his spot as he quickly dug through his kunai pouch that was located on his back. Finding what he was looking for, he threw multiple kunai with paper bombs attached to them. The wings on Fu's back started to flap before she took to the skies just in the right moment before the paper bombs reached the spot where she had been running to. "It's those wings," realized Shikamaru as he looked up at the now flying Fu. "Those are what give her speed. If I could only take them out somehow." "You," said Ino through gritted teeth as she held her gut in pain while looking up to where Fu was currently flying. Well, technically she was more like just hovering over the ground. "Oh, I'm sorry," said Fu in obvious sarcasm. "Did I leave a mark on your body anywhere? Because we all know that that would be a shame. After all, you have to look your absolute best when Sasuke arrives, right?" Ino frowned at this. "Just how do you dash?" "No so much," finished Fu with a smirk. "Because Naruto told me, that's how. We did have a few days all to ourselves in his apartment, after all." Despite the situation, Sakura felt her face heat up at the insinuation. "What? Why you mean that you and Naruto had sex?" finished Fu once again with a smirk as she glanced at the blushing and now angry Sakura. "Yes, we did. Quite a few times actually. And then he did it with Mikoto-san too, but they don't have to know that," finished Fu in her mind. Chomei simply humphed at the memory within Fu's mind but didn't comment. "You talk too much," said Shikamaru as he threw more kunai with paper bombs attached to them at the unsuspecting Fu. Or she seemed unsuspecting at least. Fu didn't even move an inch as the paper bombs exploded all around her, shrouding her in a cloud of smoke. "Did I get her?" thought Shikamaru with a calculating gaze. "Is that all you got?" said Fu with a now bored tone as the cloud of smoke cleared to reveal an unharmed Fu. "You know, I fought an Umbu woman before this by herself, and I gotta say that she gave me more of a challenge than the two of you combined." "We're not through yet," retorted Ino as she stood up. "But I'm through with you," replied Fu before she started to inhale deeply. "Not good," thought Shikamaru as he made to jump out of the way. But before doing so, he turned to look at the angry-looking Ino. Ino, move! But it was too late. Haiden, Rinpungakure. Fu exhaled more of the shiny powder-like substance from her mouth, with the quantity being enough to immediately cover the whole area, completely blinding both Shikamaru and Ino for the moment. Ino could only frown as she looked around the cloud of the shiny substance that was all around her, blinding her for the moment. She could only see about a feet in front of her. Maybe even less. Ino, shouted Shikamaru somewhere from her left. She was about to shout back when she felt a presence behind her. Turning around as quickly as she could, she was surprised to see no one there. What is this? She wondered to herself. It's a game. Hearing the voice behind her, Ino never had the chance to turn around as she felt multiple objects impale in her back. She slowly turned her head around to see who it was, only to find a grinning Fu standing right behind her with her right arm forward. "This is it for you, blonde," said Fu as she retracted the arm from which she had used to shoot her scales from her armor. Blood started to ooze from Ino's mouth as well as from her back from where she had been hit. "Why you?" She never got to finish as she fell to the ground, face first. But she was still alive for the moment. Komiai's chakra will spread around her body, slowly poisoning it and killing it from the inside out. I could show her some pity and just simply end it, but I really don't feel like it. These were the people that all Jinchuriki were fighting for. The ones that thought of themselves as better than people like Jinchuriki were just because they had simply been born with the fate of carrying a great power within them. Not to mention the fact that they didn't even do this by choice either. Not to mention the fact that I really don't like her, thought Fu before shaking her head. She still had another target to kill. Fu then, for the second time, felt herself lose control of her body yet again. Seeing this, she rolled her eyes. "I thought we already established the fact that your shadow-based jutsu doesn't work on me, Nara." "Don't fuck with me," came out the response from somewhere in the still-present cloud of the sparkly substance. "Both you and Naruto have taken important parts of my life, I'll now return him the favor. Kage Kubi Shirbari." Fu then glanced down to see a fast-approaching shadow shaped like that of a hand traveling up her body and towards her neck. "So that's your game," thought Fu with a smirk before Komiai's chakra began to surround her yet again. "Unfortunately, you're gonna have to be faster than this, pineapple head." The shadow hand was completely blown back. Fu also felt the control of her body return to her. "Much better," she said before the cloud of the sparkling substance surrounding the area began to disappear at her command. Once it did, she heard a loud gasp. Turning her head to look at where Sakura was currently laying, she saw the said Kunoichi looking at Ino's unmoving body with tears in her eyes. Fu simply turned away from the sight to find Shikamaru. "Now, where is he?" she thought to herself as she took several steps forward, surveying all of the abandoned buildings as well as the rooftops. "Knowing him, he's probably thinking of a plan of how to defeat me," she thought with a sigh. "Now there's a bummer, I really hate strategists." "No surprise there," muttered Chome. Having heard the bijou, Fu was about to respond until she heard a loud thud behind her. Turning around, she saw a badly injured Shikamaru with one knee Yujito standing over him with a smirk on her face. "Looking for something?" she said with her smirk. Fu merely scowled at this. "Yo, 7. Looking to a rooftop to her left, Fu saw a waving bee just simply standing there. "How did you guys find me?" asked Fu. Yujito shook her head. "Have you forgotten that we're also Jinchuriki? Both of our bijou picked up the chakra from yours that you were using." "Oh," was Fu's smart response. "We also brought some company," said Yujito while looking behind her just in time as Sasuke, Suigetsu, and Karen landed on the ground behind her. From the side, Sakura's eyes widened. "Sasuke-kun." Sasuke merely cast her an uninterested glance. Naruto placed both of his arms in the back of his head as if he were laying somewhere and about to take a nap as he continued to float aimlessly in the empty dark space. "You know," he began, for some reason, that doesn't shock me at all. And why is that? It explains why the Sennin even sealed you into that tablet in the first place. Oh? Please share your thoughts with me, if you will. Naruto chuckled. It all comes down to your power in the end. You weakened the Jubi by absorbing its soul energy. Yes, that about sums it up. Although, I'm not entirely sure how much of its energy I actually absorbed that day. The energy from the Jubi is limitless. Even its soul? Now that is something that I'm not entirely sure about. But the consequences of me absorbing Jubi's energy is the key here. Naruto raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. In the beginning, I was merely just a sword. Well, still not just simply a sword as the Rikudo Sennin, or you, created me with the power of consuming one's energy from that person's soul in part thanks to his Onmyoton and In-Ioton powers granted him by his Rinnegan. He also forged me using his own chakra placed into my blade itself. But I didn't have a conscience like I do now. Let me guess that occurred after you absorbed the Jubi's energy, said Naruto. Indeed. The Jubi's energy is not ordinary, after all. It gave birth to me. He was once a god, indeed, thought Naruto. Something told him that the sentient sword already knew this. It was also at this time that my powers became what they are today. The more energy from souls that I collect, the more powerful that I myself become. That crimson aura, that is my power that is channeled through you. But as I gained my own thoughts, the Sennin must have decided that I was too dangerous to use any longer, so he sealed me away into that tablet after the Jubi's defeat. Of course, that is what I had believed all this time. Now you're thinking that he left you there for me to find you one day, right? Said Naruto as he closed his eyes again. Exactly. Which makes me ask the final question, what are you going to do now? Naruto shook his head at that as he opened his eyes. Exactly what I had been doing before all of this happened. Nothing has changed in the slightest. Very well. Then, Master, allow me to share with you my real power. Naruto smirked when he heard that. By all means, please do. In the real world, all the others present were still shielding their eyes as the crimson energy continued to stay in its tornado-like form. We can't allow this to go on any longer, stated Tsunade with a frown on her face. Allow me, was Guy's immediate response as he began to charge and ready his chakra, his skin turning red. Guy, you're going to... thought Tsunade as Guy suddenly disappeared in an instant, only for him to reappear inside of the wild spinning crimson energy. He actually got in there, muttered Tsum in shock. He's that fast, stated Ibiki with his hands in the pockets of the black trench coat that he wore. Guy was immediately in front of the unmoving Naruto and ready to attack him, said silver-haired shinobi having had disabled his Susanoo subconsciously. Hiradora. Right before their eyes, the gathered Konoha shinobi saw Guy shoot out a massive punch in the shape of a gray tiger-type animal. What is this? Said Tsum with wide eyes. Jiraiya smirked. The strongest taijutsu user in Konoha. No, maybe even the entire elemental nations. Inside the crimson energy, Naruto's unmoving body raised both of his arms forward until they were in front of his body, his Rinnegan eyes snapping wide open less than a second after that. Shinra Tensei. Guy along with his technique, hell even Tsunade and the rest, were blown back from Naruto's attack and counter move. The others landed on their backs on the ground with a loud and rough thud. Jiraiya-chan, are you all right? Asked Fukasaku. I'll live, answered Jiraiya with a chuckle at the irony of that statement. Brat, screamed Tsum as she stood up and began to run towards Naruto, now still with her partner dog right next to her. Don't be stupid, shouted Tsunade as she tried to stand up. The others didn't notice, however, the fact that all around Naruto's body red marks or lines began to appear. The most noticeable being in his face. The lines formed the shape of an eye right in the middle of Naruto's forehead between his other two real eyes. Two lines also ran down on each side of his cheeks. Getsuga. The crimson energy began to die down as Tsum's fast-spinning attack moved closer to Naruto's form. Said silver-hair individual simply brought his sword forward in order to intercept the attack. Seeing this, Jiraiya's eyes widened. "That's suicide," he screamed in his mind. Even he would dodge that attack from the Inuzuka clan rather than trying to counter it. At the last moment before Naruto's sword met with Tsum's attack, the Saiketsugakari glowed crimson again, spraying Tsum with all of its energy. All others present watched in shock as a loud scream filled with pain ran throughout the whole area. Looking at the aftermath, they could just make out Tsum's burnt form laying right in front of Naruto's feet, her partner dog laying right next to her. It was clear to everyone present that she was dead. Before anyone could react, Naruto raised his left hand in front of him, said hand also not being the one that was currently holding the sword. Bansho Tenin. Guy, having used a lot of his energy in the last attack, was simply pulled forward once more towards Naruto. "No," said Jiraiya as he rushed at Naruto. "Jiraiya!" screamed Tsunade from behind him. Time slowed down as Guy continued to be pulled forward with Jiraiya rushing from behind him in order to save him. Guy narrowed his eyes as his skin began to turn red once more. No way in hell was he going down without a fight. "Goodbye," muttered Naruto as he brought his sword forward. Asakujaku. Naruto's Susanoo bursted into life at this, completely repelling the flame attacks from Guy's last-ditch effort. Seeing no other alternative, Jiraiya began to form a Rasengan in his left hand in complete desperation. But he knew it was too late. He could watch with wide eyes as Naruto's sword pierced Guy's stomach completely, the tip of its blade sticking out in the back. Guy merely closed his eyes as his body began to turn into ash. Rasengan. One of the swords from Naruto's sword simply sent Jiraiya flying back, his body cut in half. Naruto simply watched as Guy's body completely turned into ash, his Susanoo having protected him from the droplets of blood that had poured out due to the stabbing. Naruto then focused on the fast-approaching Tsunade. The markings on his face began to glow as his Susanoo completely disappeared. "Naruto!" screamed Tsunade as she was in front of him, fist brought back and bringing it forward with all the strength that she could muster. But Naruto simply brought his left hand forward, palm opened, in order to intercept the punch which he did. The ground beneath them cracked as a result. Tsunade's eyes widened as she saw her punch be blocked by a simple open palm. How did you?" Tsunade could not finish her question. "Shinra Tensei." Tsunade grunted in pain as she flew backwards, coming to a stop into a small crater that she had just created with her body. Naruto then turned to Ibiki who had his eyes narrowed in anger. "Now, it's you," was all Naruto said. "I won't go down easily, brat," was Ibiki's response as the world around Naruto began to change. This again, thought Naruto as he found himself trapped within what appeared to be a giant steel cage. Moments later, multiple chains began to wrap themselves around his body with Ibiki appearing in front of him the next. "This is my strongest technique," he stated as he looked at Naruto with a cold look. Said silver-haired Rinnegan wielder was simply looking at him with a bored look. "Now, experience pain." "No," interrupted Naruto as his face turned into a twisted grin as well as the markings on his face glowing again. "You experience pain, Marino Ibiki." Ibiki soon found himself staring face to face with Kurama in a sewer-like place, the chains from before now being wrapped around him. "What is this?" he shouted as he struggled to get free from the chains before he tried biting his lip to draw blood in order to escape from the genjutsu. But Kurama just simply grinned as he opened his mouth widely in order to eat the human in front of him. In the world, Ibiki let out a loud scream before he fell backwards on the ground on his back with his eyes rolled all the way to the back of his head. What?" muttered Tsunade as she tried to get up, having witnessed what had happened to Ibiki. "Jiraiya-chan. Hang in there, kid." Naruto shouldered his sword once more as he addressed the last remaining living individuals, "And now that all of our nuisances are gone, why don't we get started for real?" he said with a smirk. Outside of Konoha, something else was currently taking place at the moment as well. All around the main gates of the villages, shinobi numbering in the thousands began to enter the village of Konoha. These shinobi were dressed in the standard Suna uniform. And up in the air, floating in his sand, stood the Godame Kazekage, Gaara. Gaara had both of his arms crossed in front of his chest as he watched the army that he had prepared for this moment enter the village through the east gate. I never wanted things to come to this, he thought as he turned to look at the burning village in front of him. But you leave me no choice, Naruto. Suna had just arrived in order to support Konoha. Fire style, Gokaku. The fire technique that every Uchiha was known to use impacted with a tree branch from the giant tree that had been created a while ago. Madara simply stood on top of the tree with his arms crossed in front of his chest as he watched the revived and controlled Itachi play a game of cat and mouse with the wood clones that he had created, who also had their Susanoo activated in its simplest form. That was smart of you, Kabuto, commented Madara as Itachi dodged a swipe from one of the swords of one of the wood clones Susanoo. Of course he was talking about the fact that Itachi had shot the fireball at the real him and not one of his clones. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do better than that in order to defeat me. Itachi didn't respond as he jumped back, dodging another swipe from another Susanoo. As he landed, he noticed that he was surrounded by all of the clones with their Susanoo present. If he had to guess, Itachi or Kabuto would say that there were about 15 clones present. That was not good at all. I can't afford to lose Itachi, thought Kabuto in frustration, but it seems that I won't be able to handle Madara with just him. He's going to need extra help. Madara raised an eyebrow as 4 more coffins rose from the ground around Itachi's still form. So he's going to bring more shinobi into this, is he? Thought Madara with a chuckle. Regardless, the outcome will still be the same. The coffins immediately disappeared right after the 4 revived shinobi had walked out from them. So it's you again, commented Madara as he immediately recognized one of them. To be precise, it was one that was entirely wrapped in bandages. Tsuchikage. The Nidaime Tsuchikage, or Mu, looked up at Madara. Uchiha Madara, quite a surprise to see you again even after I'm already dead. The feeling is mutual, replied Madara. What's going on here? Asked a redhead next to Mu. It seems we've been revived, replied another one that had no eyebrows who was standing to the left of Mu. It must be that damn Nidaime Hokage with his Edo Tensei. When I get my hands on him, I'll dash. It's not the Nidaime who summoned you, interrupted Itachi, who walked forward until he was standing in front of the 4. Well, technically it was Kabuto who said it. But that doesn't matter now. The reason you're even here is to defeat that man over there, he stated while pointing upwards to where Madara stood. I take no orders from anyone, retorted the tallest individual present, who was also dark-skinned with a giant scar running down his chest. Especially from a brat like you. But Itachi didn't respond to him. It wasn't like he needed to. Moments later, the others present felt their bodies to start moving on their own. The Edo Tensei, thought the redhead in slight anger as he felt his chakra begin to form his gold sand from the minerals that were present on the ground. Man, I really hate this jutsu, stated the one with no eyebrows. The wood clones themselves simply stood there as Itachi activated his own Susanoo. The past Kages, muttered Madara before a chuckle escaped his lips as he gazed down at the revived shinobi. Let's see if you can give me enough of a challenge in order to entertain me for a while. You still haven't changed, commented Mu. Madara didn't bother to respond. The wood clone Susanoo all raised their swords upward, ready to strike down their opponents in front of them at any time. The now identified Raikage activated his lightning armor and disappeared from sight, only to reappear outside of the ring that the wood clones had made in order to trap the Kages, and immediately took off towards the real Madara. The Mizukage scoffed. Show off. The Kazekage simply crossed his arms in the exact manner Madara was doing as golden sand erupted from the ground from behind him before shooting it towards the wood clones in front of him. Mu was immediately behind the Kazekage, standing back to back with him with both of his hands in front of him. Jin-tun, Genkai Hakuri. Immediately 4 of the wood clones were surrounded in a giant cube with a sphere in the middle before they were all reduced to small particles along with their Susanoo. The Mizukage smirked at this as he glanced behind him. That's the mummy for you. His Jin-tun is still as strong as ever. The Mizukage then brought his hands to the ground with a grin on his face before he was surrounded in a cloud of dust. The remaining wood clones sprang into action, their respective Susanoo attacking the Kages. Itachi's Susanoo's shield blocked off all of the attacks that were sent his way. The Kazekage took a step back as he tried to hold off the attacks from the clones with his gold sand. Mu for his part merely took off flying in order to dodge the attacks, and the Mizukage was nowhere to be seen. The real Madara closed his eyes momentarily before snapping them wide open as the Raikage appeared behind him, ready to strike him down. Shinra Tensei. The Raikage was pushed back a few feet but otherwise held his ground as he tried to push through the attack with his lightning armor still activated. Madara raised an eyebrow in respect as he noticed this. Your physical strength is outstanding. I'll give you that much, stated Madara as he turned around in order to face the Raikage as he continued to press with his gravity attack. I'm afraid, though, that won't be enough to defeat me. The Raikage didn't respond. Instead, he disappeared from his spot only to reappear to Madara's right, intent on trying to attack him once more. Seeing this, Madara grinned as his Susanoo sprung to life, which completely deflected the punch from the Raikage. You've also got speed, muttered Madara before he noticed that his Susanoo was beginning to crack from the single punch. As well as strength, he added before turning serious. It seems that I really must not take you lightly, Raikage. Immediately sensing danger, the Raikage jumped back in order to dodge being hit by the giant sword from Madara's Susanoo. It seems that this will be fun after all, said Madara with a small grin as his Susanoo disappeared before jumping off the tree and down below with the Raikage being right behind him. Amaterasu. The wood clone in front of Itachi simply fell to the ground as he began to be burned by the black flames. Itachi's eyes widened partially as tendrils made out of wood began to come out of the ground all around him, with them wrapping tightly around his body. This is it for you, said another wood clone from behind him. The Itachi in front of him simply dispersed into crows the next moment, making the Madara clone smirk. Clever. The real Madara landed right next to him the next moment before they took positions with their backs facing each other. Itachi appeared in front of the clone, and the Raikage landed in front of the real Madara. It seemed that this was not close to being over just yet. On the other side of the compound, Tsunade stood up on shaky legs as she focused entirely on the approaching Naruto. So you're going to kill me now, are you? Asked Tsunade as she tried to heal her wounds on her body before giving up, knowing it to be useless. There was a better way, after all. Well, it wasn't better, but it was faster. Naruto stopped walking, simply standing in front of the Godame Hokage in silence before he shouldered his sword. You know something, Tsunade, began Naruto in a relaxed and calm manner, which was the complete opposite of what he had been throughout the whole fight. Okay, it couldn't really be called a fight. Naruto had yet to take any damage at all. But that was not the point at the moment. I still don't see why you're still hung up on trying to save this village, he continued while shaking his head. Essentially, this village betrayed your family as well. No, it did. Case in point. There is no denying that fact. Tsunade smirked at him as blood began to come out of her mouth. You still don't get it, do you? It's everything that you once stood for. No, interrupted Naruto with an amused look on his face now appearing. That wasn't the real me. I suppose you could call it a fake in a sense. That was just my incomplete version. The one that you see standing before you, that's the real me. The one that I've been trying to suppress for so many years. But you know what? I'm tired of doing that. This is my true nature. And nothing in the world is going to change that. Are you? Asked Tsunade before looking at the pile of ash that had once been Irika. Because I'm pretty sure that Irika once saved you from becoming this. Are you certain that there is no one left that can change your mind at this point? Naruto grinned slightly at that while closing his eyes. He didn't fear the woman standing before him in the slightest. You're right about that, I'll admit to that much. But that was just my naive self clinging to a false hope. An escape, if you will. It was because someone actually believed in me and saw me for who I am, not just my Jinchuriki side. Because of this, I thought that I could make the others believe that as well. But, I've come to realize that that was just a stupid dream. The whole concept of trying to prove myself, it's just idiotic to me now. That's not what you once believed in, retorted Tsunade as she fell to her knees. No longer being able to stand, Naruto opened his Rinnegan-activated eyes as he looked at Tsunade. I told you that that was just my naive self clinging to a false hope. I've come to know of the true nature of this village. After everything that I know now, do you really expect for me to actually try to fight for this place? Naruto nearly screamed the last part out. You're no better, responded Tsunade as she looked straight at him. I never said that I was, retorted Naruto. Call me what you want. I really don't care at this point. But talking to you is pointless. You've obviously chosen your side. This is my grandfather's jewel, stated Tsunade as she stood up, her diamond on her forehead activating as it healed all of her wounds instantaneously, and I will protect it no matter what. Naruto chuckled in obvious amusement when he heard this. Your grandfather's jewel, he said as a dark grin appeared on his face. Another thing that you're mistaken about. He longer believed in this village when we fought. Tsunade's eyes widened at this. That's not possible. Naruto shrugged. Believe me if you want. Or don't. It really doesn't make a difference to me. But he told me so himself. I really can't say I defeated him either. He allowed me to kill him again of his own free will. If there was a time when this village was actually a sign of peace, it was in his time. Now? It's nothing more than a lie. Tsunade growled before she rushed at Naruto in obvious anger. Seeing this, Naruto simply grinned before bringing his Saikatsu Gakari in front of him. He was greatly surprised, however, as Tsunade's punch succeeded in pushing him back a few feet. Her strength has increased, thought Naruto as he came to a halt. It must be because of that diamond on her forehead. Tsunade could only frown as she noticed that Naruto's sword had not been broken in half by her punch. Just what is that thing made out of, anyway? Naruto chuckled. So, you're still going to be stubborn, are you? Even when you know that it is hopeless. Tsunade scowled. I've already told you. I'm going to protect this village. You may be right. Some of the past actions from Konoha have not been just. But that doesn't give you the right to do what you're doing. And that is where you are wrong, retorted Naruto with narrowed eyes. It gives me the right, and even if that weren't the case, I'm doing this for my own satisfaction as well. Is it right or wrong? I don't give a shit. Right or wrong are just labels, a matter of perspective. But for the third time, this is just for bringing joy to my own little dark heart. The markings that formed a third eye at the center of Naruto's forehead glowed for a moment as well as the streaks on Naruto's sword. Naruto chuckled as his face turned back into its twisted grin. Now, are we done with our little chat? Because I really need to get going with the destruction of this place. The next moment, Naruto found himself covered completely in oil, making Naruto become confused for the moment. What the dash? Fire style, Gameu Enden. Naruto soon found himself completely covered in flames thanks to Jiraiya, who was standing a good distance behind him. That should teach him, stated Shima with a scowl on her face. Before they could celebrate any further, chuckling could be heard from within the flames that had supposedly killed Naruto. Getting me from my blind spot, sensei? Now how is that honorable, said Naruto as he repelled the flames as well as the oil along with it with his Rinnegan. It's not meant to be honorable, retorted Jiraiya. Naruto chuckled as he turned to face the toad Sannin. You got me there. Not that it matters anyway. Don't forget about me, brat, screamed Tsunade as she appeared behind the amused Naruto, swinging her fist towards the said silver-haired Jinchuriki. Shinra Tensei. Tsunade was blown back yet again. I really love that technique, thought Naruto before he glanced at the downed Tsunade. Your strength is too much of a hassle to deal with for me to get hit. So I'm not going to let you come anywhere near my face. Understood? Using the supposed opening, Jiraiya immediately got on all fours again. Senpo, Kibari Senbon. Without turning to face the incoming hair needles, Naruto brought his freed hand forward, completely repelling the attack. Didn't your mother ever tell you that it's impolite to interrupt someone when they're talking? Said Naruto as he turned to look at Jiraiya with a dark grin. But if that's how you want to play, then bring it on. Jiraiya didn't respond as he rushed at Naruto, hoping to overpower him with the increased strength that his Sage Mode provided him with. When he was close enough, Jiraiya jumped and sent a powerful axe kick down towards the person who had once been his student. What he wasn't expecting, though, was for Naruto to simply bring his left arm forward in order to block the kick and succeed in doing so as well. But that's not possible, thought Jiraiya in momentary shock. Naruto's arm should have been broken in half and become completely useless afterwards. Using Jiraiya's shock to his advantage, Naruto brought his sword upwards towards the white-haired man. Seeing this, Jiraiya made to dodge only to see Naruto quickly grab a hold of both of his feet with his other hand. Jiraiya screamed in pain as Naruto cut straight through both of his legs, him falling to the ground as a result. Not only that, but he felt himself become weaker once again. Jiraiya-chan, screamed Fukasaku in worry from his spot on Jiraiya's shoulder. He absorbed more of my soul, thought Jiraiya in pain. It's just like with the sword from Hoshigaki Kisame, except that instead of chakra, Naruto's sword consumes souls. I've played around with you long enough, stated Naruto as his face lost all of its playfulness. Seeing as this is the best that I'm going to get from you, there really is no point in continuing with this. Hearing this, Shima growled before she decided that she had enough. She inhaled deeply before shooting out a continuous amount of a fire stream. Seeing this, both Jiraiya and Fukasaku decided to add their 2 cents there. Senpo, Gomen. Fukasaku shot out a strong wind stream while the downed Jiraiya shouted out oil from his mouth. The collaboration technique hit Naruto dead on, causing a major explosion to occur only for it to die down a second later. So you're still trying, said Naruto as his Rinnegan absorbed the attack. I respect that, but any jutsu is meaningless before these eyes. Naruto was then right above Jiraiya, the Saikitsugakari raised upward before he brought it down, impaling Jiraiya straight where his heart should be. Both Fukasaku and Shima could only watch this in shock before they both disappeared in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya had been the one to summon them here, after all. This is the end, stated Naruto with no remorse. Jiraiya gasped in pain as he felt all of his energy being drained by the Saikitsugakari as well as feeling his body beginning to turn into ash. I wonder, thought Jiraiya as he looked at Naruto's expressionless face, if I had only trained Naruto properly those 3 years ago, if had actually acted like his godfather, would this fate have been avoided? Was that the choice that decided all of this? My carelessness, I wonder. In the next moment, Jiraiya's body was completely turned into ash as well as the one that had been used as the sacrifice for being able to summon the dead shinobi. So that was the end of Jiraiya, muttered Kurama. But Naruto didn't pay him any mind at the moment. Instead, he turned his attention to the still-down Tsunade who was looking at him with pure anger and hatred. If looks could kill, Naruto would be nothing more than a pile of ash just like Jiraiya was. That regeneration jutsu of yours is taking quite a toll on your body, isn't it? Said Naruto as he shouldered his sword yet again. But Tsunade didn't respond to him any longer. This was the last straw. He had just killed Jiraiya, again. There just wasn't any point in talking any longer. "Are you sure that you want to kill her?" asked Kurama. "After all, Mito wants to take care of her personally." "You're right about that," replied Naruto before facing towards the burning village. "Something tells me that they're going to need backup. I can sense the chakra from Matatabi as well as from Gyuki, meaning that both Yujito and B are here now. Add to the fact that Fu is also here. That makes 3 Bijou present in the village, so dash. That doesn't mean that they're invincible," countered Naruto. "I'd rather not take any chances." Kurama simply shrugged. "Your choice." "Don't ignore me," screamed Tsunade as she finally stood up before she fell to her knees yet again as she coughed up blood. Naruto rolled his eyes. "You're in no condition to do anything right now, Tsunade. Besides, it's not my job to take care of you. Someone else has already called the right to do that." "Who are you?" began to ask Tsunade before it hit her. "Grandmother," she thought as an image of Mito appeared in her mind. "It's been fun," said Naruto before he placed the Saikatsu Gakari on his back. "But that fun now has to come to an end. I doubt that we'll see each other again. But in the event that we do, well, I don't know. I guess we'll just see what will happen then." With that, Naruto disappeared in a dark flash. Seeing this, Tsunade hit the ground next to her with as much force as possible as she could muster. The diamond on her forehead also returned to its normal state. She needed to recover. Sakura could not believe what she was seeing, or rather who she was seeing. Right in front of her was Sasuke of all people. But what was he doing here? And also, why was he wearing the uniform of the Akatsuki for that matter? Just what dash? "Don't ask, monkey," interrupted Fu with a sigh. "All you need to know is that Sasuke is also on Naruto's side." Sakura's eyes widened as much as possible at this new information before she turned to look at Sasuke for confirmation. But Sasuke didn't even bother to even look at her. He was currently looking to where the Uchiha compound was supposed to be located. Seeing this, Suigetsu raised an eyebrow. "Oi, Sasuke. What are you looking at?" Sasuke merely began to walk towards where his home had once been before he answered Suigetsu with, "Let's go. There's something that I need to see." Karen was immediately right behind him. Suigetsu grumbled for a moment before he too started to follow behind the Uchiha. Wait, Sasuke-kun," exclaimed Sakura as she tried to move her upper body but found that she still couldn't. It just hurt too much. Not to mention the fact that the circulation of her chakra was still messed up thanks to Hinata. Sasuke stopped dead on his tracks and glanced at the downed Sakura. Just what is it that you want now?" "How could you be on Naruto's side?" asked Sakura with wide eyes. "Why would you turn against the village?" Sasuke scoffed at the question. "You're still the same immature girl, Sakura. Me and Naruto, we've both grown up. That is all. You're simply still living in your own fantasy world where you think that being a shinobi is just fun and games. Well, it isn't. Reality is much harsher than that. But you couldn't possibly understand this. You've had family and friends your whole life, always being protected. Sometimes I see that as a curse. Because of what I have experienced, I have managed to grow up. The same thing applies to Naruto. People like you who take things for granted, they make me sick." Tears began to form in Sakura's eyes as she listened to every word that Sasuke said. "Why you can't dash?" "I've already told you this," interrupted Sasuke as he turned his head away from her, "but you're annoying. You're not even worth killing." With that, Sasuke resumed his walk towards the Uchiha compound, both Suigetsu and Karen behind him. Yujito simply sighed as Sakura began to cry. Fangirls, she thought with an internal frown before she turned to look at Fu. "What now?" "We need to link up with Niji," answered Fu before she shrugged. "Well, I was supposed to, but..." B landed right beside Fu. "Who's Niji?" he asked with a tilt of his head. "You'll see soon enough," replied Fu before she began to walk towards the crying Sakura. But first, Yujito for her part looked down to see the unconscious Shikamaru on the ground, who groaned, which indicated that he was close to regaining consciousness. Not very honorable, thought Yujito as her nails began to grow, but why should I care? Shinobi aren't meant to be honorable. With that thought in mind, Yujito sliced Shikamaru's head off with her nails that were coated with Matatabi's chakra. Shikamaru was dead at that moment. Fu stopped right in front of the still crying Sakura, looking down at her with a small amount of pity in her orange eyes. "So this is it, monkey?" Sakura didn't bother to respond to her. And why should she? There was nothing that she had to say to her now. Without a word, Fu shot her scales from her arm from her green armor all over Sakura's body, making the said pink medic cry out in pain for a moment before she fell silent. Haruno Sakura was dead within seconds. "What about her?" asked Yujito while pointing at the body of Ino, who groaned slightly in intense pain. "Leave her," answered Fu as she began to walk away. "She's already dead. There's nothing that anyone can do to save her at this point." Before Yujito could reply, a horde of Suna shinobi appeared all around them from the rooftops. "We have company, yo," said B as he pointed all around him, stating the obvious. Temari landed in front of Fu with many other Suna shinobi behind her, looking at the bodies of Sakura, Shikamaru, and Ino. "So we're too late," thought Temari with a frown. Fu could only sigh in annoyance. "Seriously, just what is it with all of the interruptions? I just want to finish my mission. Is that too freaking hard?" Yujito chuckled before she stepped forward, looking straight at Temari. "The blonde one is mine. I can tell that she's not an ordinary kunoichi." Fu simply rolled her eyes. "Suit yourself." "But what about the rest of them?" she said, while pointing at the gathered Suna shinobi. "I got this, yo," was the statement that came from behind both Fu and Yujito. The next moment, many of the present shinobi from Suna wet their pants as B transformed himself into his bijou mode, completely becoming the Hachibi. Yujito chuckled. "You can have all of them, but save the blonde one for me." "You got that, B." "As you command, kitty," replied B with a chuckle in his current state. "Have fun then," said Fu before she took off flying via her wings that were on her back thanks to the armor that she wore. "Shall we have some fun, Suna kunoichi?" said Yujito with a feral grin on her face as the Hachibi stood behind her. Temari merely readied her fan as she prepared herself for what would probably be the hardest battle in her life. Up in the Hokage mountain, Naruto saw as the arrived force from Suna began to turn the tide of the battle. Most members from the Hyuga clan had been wiped out and the white Zetsus themselves weren't strong enough to handle this themselves. "This doesn't look good," commented Kurama with a frown. "And who knows when that Uchiha woman will arrive." Naruto was currently sitting down on the stone head of the Shodai, the Saikitsugakari laying down on Naruto's right shoulder with the tip of the blade touching the ground. Naruto grinned as he watched all of this as well as the transformation by B. "Yeah, it doesn't look all right. But you're also forgetting that I had already suspected that Gaara would get involved this early. No doubt that he already had his army at the border, if not closer, before the Kage summit took place. It was then that Zetsu appeared on the ground beside him." "Obito is dead," stated Black Zetsu. "Is that so?" said Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "No doubt that he went out on his terms." "And what makes you say that?" asked White Zetsu. Naruto chuckled. "I don't know. Call it a simple hunch, if you will." "I agree with you on that," replied Black Zetsu. "So, that Uchiha is dead, is he?" said Kurama with a grin on his face. "Now that brings a smile to my face." Naruto mentally shook his head. "I've got to disagree with you on that, my friend. Obito was cool as far as I'm concerned. And not like the rest of the Uchiha clan." "Well, he wasn't that bad," relented Kurama. Naruto realized that that was the best that he would get out of the Bijou in this matter. "What will you do now with this new problem?" asked Black Zetsu. Before Naruto could respond, one Hyuga Niji appeared behind with a badly injured Shizune on his back. Naruto glanced at him for a moment. "It seems that you were having fun," he said with a small grin. Niji scowled as he threw the Shizune's body on the ground behind him. "Don't get me started. Chasing her was a bitch. I'm just glad that it's over with." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Speaking of which, why is she even alive?" Niji shrugged. "I thought that you might have some use for her." Naruto waved his hands in dismissal at that as he turned to face the village again. "Well, I don't. She's useless to me." "Oh." Realizing his mistake, Niji quickly kicked Shizune's body off the Hokage mountain and down towards the ground below. Nobody present commented on this. "Back to your question," said Naruto while glancing at Black Zetsu for the moment. "I'm not going to do shit just yet." Niji raised an eyebrow when he heard that. "And why is that?" Naruto shrugged. "It would be too early for that. I want to enjoy this a bit more. But I do have something to kick things back in our favor," he added with a dark smirk. "And that would be?" asked Black Zetsu. Naruto merely bit the thumb of his right hand in order to draw blood. Realization hit both Black and White Zetsu as they saw this. Niji for his part looked on in confusion. As far as he was concerned, Naruto didn't have any other summoning contract other than with the toads. Kuchios. Several puffs of smoke appeared behind Naruto. "Uzumaki, you really have random times for summoning me, don't you?" came from the puff of smoke directly behind him. A second later, it revealed a familiar red-looking dragon. Naruto chuckled. "I apologize for that, Mukaryu, but I have something that will make it up as well as to your pals." The other clouds of smoke revealed similar-looking dragons except with different colors. One was yellow, another one was bright blue with the other being a slightly darker blue, and finally there was a white dragon. Naruto pointed down at the village below him. "See this village? Go crazy. Except for that giant octopus, a blonde kunoichi from Kumo, another mint-haired kunoichi as well as a third kunoichi with purple hair with a trench coat, you can kill anyone that you see down there." Mukaryu simply nodded before he took off along with the rest of the dragons down to the village below. "I didn't know that you had another summoning contract," said Niji with a surprised look. "And that of the dragons as well?" Naruto simply shrugged. "None of you ever asked. Speaking of which, where is Enko right now?" Niji really didn't know the answer to that. Before he could respond, however, a tendril of sand was shot behind him and sent towards him. Naruto was immediately behind him, sword in hand and with his left hand raised forward. Shinra Tensei. The sand was immediately repelled. Niji could only sigh as he closed his eyes for a moment. "I guess that I owe you one." "Don't mention it," replied Naruto as he looked up at the air to see the floating Gaara via his sand. Naruto smirked up at him. "So it's you, Gaara." "Naruto," was all that Gaara said as he stood on the sand with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Naruto looked back on Niji. "Even though it's not necessary, how about a team-up?" Niji smirked as he walked forward until he was right beside Naruto, both of them turning their attention back to Gaara. "It will be my pleasure." "This is going to be good," said White Zetsu with a massive grin on his face as he watched all of this. Black Zetsu had to agree with his counterpart. Now one would think that Naruto would want to just appear anywhere in the village and start killing anyone from Konoha, be they a civilian or shinobi, and to just simply destroy the village again like he had already done once. To just get everything over with already. Well, that person would be dead wrong. Naruto had been impatient before he had acquired the Saikatsu Gakari, that much was true. And he still kind of was. But there were a few things that he needed to do before he could truly just sit back and watch the fireworks go off, if you will. There were two things in fact. And those two things would be Kabuto and his other self. They were the only true major threats and annoyances that still stood in Naruto's way as far as he was concerned. Until they were both dead, he couldn't truly enjoy the beauty of what was currently happening. Well, what he thought of as beauty in his eyes at any rate. The people from Konoha would totally disagree with him on that regard. But who cares about that? Although he had to admit that he wasn't too annoyed about what was currently happening as he looked up at the still floating Gaara. Now as to why that was, he didn't really know. If it were anyone else, he probably would have been annoyed. Interesting. Putting those thoughts aside, Naruto glanced behind him to see the grinning white Zetsu with the indifferent-looking black Zetsu at his side. "You too, I have a job for you," began Naruto, completely ignoring Gaara for the moment. Said redhead simply stood there calmly with his arms still crossed. Neji, who stood next to Naruto, had his attention completely on Gaara for the moment, however. He had already been caught off guard once, and there was no way in hell that he was going to let that happen again. "And that is?" asked Black Zetsu. "I need for you to find Kabuto for me," answered Naruto as he turned to look at Gaara again. "It's time for me to settle the score with that bastard." "So that's why he said that it was too early," realized Black Zetsu. Hi," replied White Zetsu with his grin before they started to sink to the ground. Before they completely disappeared, however, Black Zetsu had to ask something. "What makes you so certain that he's here right now? He could be anywhere." "Maybe," replied Naruto with a small shrug, "but it doesn't hurt to look. And this way, you have something to do instead of just sitting here doing nothing." Black Zetsu didn't respond while White Zetsu chuckled before they completely sunk into the ground, intent on finding the said target. "You know," began Naruto as he looked at the calm-looking Gaara, "I'm surprised that you still haven't attacked me yet. I was kind of vulnerable right a few moments ago." "That would be pointless," replied the said redhead while glancing at Neji. "I'm sure that he would have just simply blocked my attacks. Not to mention the fact that you would probably know that they were heading your way," he finished, turning to look at Naruto again. "Besides, there is something that you and I need to discuss." Naruto immediately shook his head upon hearing that, bringing his sword up to his right shoulder. "I'm not talking with anyone anymore. It doesn't get us anywhere. I'll just be wasting my time as well as yours. I'm here, you're there. Can't we all just accept that and move on with our lives? Things would be so much simpler that way." But Gaara didn't look amused in the slightest. "The why and how we got into these positions are an important factor, and something that I'm still trying to understand at the moment." Naruto could only sigh at this. You just have to make things complicated, don't you?" "Well, just what do you want to understand exactly?" "My reasons for doing what I'm doing should be obvious to you. And as for the how, well, that would take too much time to explain," he finished with another small shrug. Neji glanced at Naruto with a raised eyebrow in confusion. "I thought you said that you weren't going to talk anymore." Naruto looked at Neji with a blank look. "How exactly is this my fault? It's him over there with all of the damn questions." Rendan, Suna Shigure. A barrage of sand bullets were immediately shot by Gaara, which headed straight towards the bickering duo until Naruto raised his freed hand, bringing it forward and repelling the barrage completely. "Son of a bitch," muttered Naruto as he turned to look at Gaara. "And here I thought that you were waiting for the moment. I can ask you everything that I want answered once I capture you," retorted Gaara as he descended on the ground, more sand making its way off the sand gourd on his back. "Cheating bastard," muttered Naruto in return before smirking. "Well, that just makes all of this easier then. It would have been boring if you just kept asking me questions without attacking me first. I would have just killed you, and then I wouldn't have been able to see what you're capable of now." Neji had a slight sweat drop as he heard this. Are you a masochist now or something?" Naruto actually thought about the question for a moment before he shrugged. "Maybe, I don't know. But would that really be a bad thing? Niji didn't even bother to acknowledge the question. If he did, he would start to fear for his own mental stability. "All right then," said Naruto as he focused back on Gaara. "Let's do this then." "He's not taking me seriously," thought Gaara in realization as he looked at the grin that began to form on Naruto's face. "He's all carefree like a person without a care in the world." Naruto then raised an eyebrow. "Well? Aren't you going to attack us or something?" Gaara didn't respond. Instead, he shot a wave of sand towards both Naruto and Niji at a fast rate, making the said duo jump out of the way. Well, Naruto didn't have to but still did. Niji activated his Byakugan as the wave of sand split in two, one heading towards Naruto and the other towards him. Seeing this, Niji prepared himself. Hakusho Kaiten. The technique defended Niji from the sand which was dispersed to different locations in the air. Naruto for his part simply used the Rinnegan to repel the sand that was sent his way. Really, he was beginning to think that the Shinra Tensei really was the best jutsu that he had in his arsenal. Niji landed on the ground, instantly dashing towards the still unmoving Gaara that still had his arms crossed. Seeing Niji heading towards him, Gaara immediately shot more of his sand towards him. Niji frowned briefly before he brought his arm forward. Hakusho. Fire style, Gokakyu. The palm thrust was soon engulfed by the fireball that was sent by Naruto, who was standing a few feet away next to Niji. Because of the palm thrust, the fireball became even more powerful. Seeing this, Gaara brought his sand in front of him in a protective wall, intent on repelling the extra-powered fireball. A few moments later, the fireball impacted the sand wall. Gaara pushed more chakra into his defensive move, trying to repel the fireball. "You're wide open, you know." Hearing this coming from behind him made Gaara's eyes widen in surprise. He didn't have the time to defend himself, however, as he felt a strong punch impact with his left cheek, sending him back towards the fireball. At the last moment, Gaara brought all of his sand around him in order to not get burned alive by the attack. Naruto, having been the one to have punched Gaara, simply watched all of this with his Rinnegan eyes. Niji was still in the same position, Byakugan activated. "Your sand armor, muttered Naruto once the fireball had died off, revealing an unharmed and slightly panting Gaara with his sand all around him. The only injury that could be seen was the cracks on the cheek that Naruto had punched, bits of it falling to the ground and revealing it just to be sand. Gaara looked behind for a moment to look at Niji before turning back to look at Naruto. "There is no way that I'll be able to fight them both at the same time." Naruto's markings from before appeared all over his face, the third eye in his forehead glowing. "Now don't tell me that that's all that you've got, Gaara," commented Naruto with a serious look before he chuckled. "Fuck it. No point in being serious right now." "What's wrong with him?" thought Gaara before he brought his sand in front of him in instinct as Naruto rushed at him, swinging his sword in order to cut down the redhead Kazekage. Instead, all he hit was the sand. Hazangeki. Gaara grunted in pain as he flew forward from the attack from Niji, who was standing behind with his arm extended. Seeing this, Naruto willed for the Saiketsugakari to emit its crimson energy, which immediately cut right through Gaara's sand just in time for the said redhead to be flying towards him. Using this opportunity, Naruto brought his sword forward, cutting right through Gaara's chest only for Gaara to disperse into sand. Switched with a sand clone at the last second, did he, realized Naruto with a grin before jumping upward. The reason for this being as massive tendrils of sand erupting from the ground which was covered in sand. Looking up, Naruto saw the real Gaara floating in his sand again with his arms crossed. "Alright, if that's how you want to play," thought Naruto as he brought his freed hand forward. Bansho Tenin. "What?" thought Gaara as he felt himself being pulled forward. Niji was up in the air next to Naruto the next moment as he sent more of his vacuum palm attacks toward the approaching Gaara. Gaara brought more sand in front of him in order to block Niji's attacks. He also sent a barrage of sand bullets towards both Naruto and Niji, using the fact that Naruto was pulling him forward to his advantage. Seeing this, the Saikitsugakari released more of its crimson energy which reflected all of the sand bullets. "This is it, Gaara," stated Naruto as for a moment his crazed grin returned. Seeing no other alternative, Gaara pushed all of his chakra into his sand armor as Naruto slashed right through his chest like he had done with the sand clone. Gaara grunted in pain as he was flown to the ground below from the attack. Both Naruto and Neji landed on the ground calmly before they turned to look at the now kneeled Gaara. "That damn sand armor of his," thought Naruto in slight frustration before he sighed. "As much as I want to continue playing with you, there is something more important that I have to take care of right now," he said out loud. Neji for his part merely glanced at Naruto for a moment before turning his attention back to Gaara. Gaara was now panting more heavily than before. His armor used up a lot of his chakra, after all. "We're not through here," replied Gaara as he took a deep breath in before standing back up. "I will defeat you." Naruto could only shake his head in amusement at that as he placed his Saikitsugakari on his back. "I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're nowhere near my level to be saying that, Gaara. But I'm through with the discussions. Let's get this over with already." Gaara was silent before taking a step back without knowing as Naruto's Susanoo erupted into life around the said silver-haired individual. Neji took several steps to the side in order to not get caught in the crossfire. "Is this the power of darkness?" thought Gaara. Naruto chuckled before placing his right hand on his face in order to hide what his face was showing at the moment. And that was a twisted and dark grin. On the far side of what was once the Uchiha compound, another conflict was currently taking place. A conflict that one Uchiha Madara was beginning to get bored of, as illustrated by the slight annoyance that his face showed as he landed on the ground from having jumped in order to dodge the gold sand sent by the revived Kazekage. Both Mu and the Raikage stood next to the Kazekage with Itachi being a good distance away behind them, simply observing the fight for the moment. Well, Kabuto was at least. As for the Mizukage, well, Madara didn't know where he was right now, but he didn't really care much either. It had been fun in the beginning, fighting Kage-level shinobi. Now it was just annoying for the revived Uchiha. "I might as well end this now," thought Madara. "Besides, I need to watch how Naruto and the others bring down this village. Heh, now there is something that I will not miss." "This is getting annoying," commented Mu with a sigh. "How long is this going to last?" "Well, it seems that we can't do anything about it," replied the Kazekage. "We're just simply puppets right now." The Raikage, although not liking that fact, nodded his head in agreement as to what the Kazekage had just started. "Enough chatting," cut in Itachi/Kabuto from behind them. "Enough time has already been wasted here." The other Kages simply grunted in annoyance but didn't respond. It was at this time that three individuals suddenly appeared beside Madara, all looking intently at the Kage in front of them. Madara chuckled slightly as he closed his eyes for a moment. "So it's you, Uchiha Sasuke." Sasuke glanced at Madara for a moment before focusing back on the three revived shinobi in front of him. "Just who are you?" "Uchiha Madara," answered Madara calmly as he crossed his arms over his chest. Sasuke was silent for a moment before simply nodding. "I see." If he was shocked from hearing that, he did a very good job at hiding it. "His chakra is off the charts," thought Karen with a slight gulp as she glanced at the calm if not slightly annoyed Madara. And Suigetsu, well, he was just looking plain bored. It was then that Sasuke noticed Itachi in the back, making his eyes widen in surprise. But before he could dwell on this, the Raikage was on the move. He rushed at them with his lightning armor still activated at an incredible speed. Seeing this, Madara stepped forward and activated his own Susanoo, which the Raikage immediately attacked again. But already being aware of the Raikage's strength, Madara immediately repelled the said shinobi with his Rinnegan. But just like before, the Raikage started to push forward despite the force that tried to push him back. So busy in doing this that he didn't notice the Amaterasu sword from Sasuke's Susanoo descending down upon him, since he was also aware of the swords from Madara's own Susanoo. The Raikage gritted his teeth in pain as he felt his entire left half of his body being consumed in the black flames as he was pushed back by Madara's Shinra Tensei. "This hurts like a bitch," thought the Raikage as he landed on the ground on his back in front of the Kazekage and Mu. Seeing this through Itachi, Kabuto could only scowl. Now that Sasuke was here, this was not going to be as easy as before. Hell, it wasn't easy to begin with. "Alright, enough with the games already," said Madara as he walked forward a couple of steps before stopping. "It's been fun, but I'm afraid that the fun has to end now." Wordlessly, the Kazekage shot his gold straight at Madara only for it to be deflected by Madara's Susanoo. In the next moment, Kabuto felt his control over Itachi dwindle for just a moment, making the said individual shocked beyond belief. After all, Itachi was the only one that he was controlling directly. His control could not be broken through. Or so he thought at least. "Still fighting, are you, Itachi?" thought Kabuto as he felt his control return. "But unfortunately, it's going to take more than just willpower to escape my control." What Kabuto didn't know was that in that brief moment of freedom, Itachi had summoned something which would be the cause of Kabuto's downfall. Madara stopped what he was going to do as he felt a change in the atmosphere before gazing at Itachi to see many crows appearing all around the said controlled Uchiha. What is he up to? Sasuke had also noticed this and was looking at his revived brother in confusion. Both the Kazekage and Mu just stood there, feeling the orders of attacking the shinobi in front of them disappear for the moment. One of the crows suddenly flew in front of Itachi, and it was then that Kabuto lost complete control of the said Uchiha. "Oi, what the hell is going on with your brother?" asked Suigetsu, who was standing next to Sasuke. But Sasuke didn't respond to him. He was too busy trying to figure out what his brother was trying to do. Or if it even was his brother doing this. Fire style, Gokakyu. Mu took the skies once more while the Kazekage brought his gold sand around him in order to shield him from the fire attack that was fired from none other than Itachi. And the Raikage, he just continued to lay on the ground while his body continued to be burned. Madara raised an eyebrow in complete surprise at the sight in front of him, as well as for Itachi appearing next to him on his right with one of the crows on his shoulder. Realization then hit Madara, causing him to chuckle in respect towards his fellow Uchiha member. "You weren't going to go down without a fight, were you?" "You know me too well," replied Itachi in a stoic manner. Sasuke could only look at him in shock. "Just what did you dash?" "He broke free of Kabuto's control with Genjutsu," interrupted Madara, already knowing what Sasuke was going to ask. "A Genjutsu?" wondered Sasuke. "But how could Genjutsu dash?" "You used Shursui's eye, didn't you?" asked Madara, but said it more like a statement. Itachi simply nodded. "It was tricky. I wasn't able to change the order that I placed on it, though, because you were hoping to one day use it against Sasuke," thought Madara with a sigh before turning his attention back to the Kage. "It doesn't matter now. But I suppose that it will be up to you to take care of Kabuto. I have to take care of these four still, as well as for something else." Well, the something else was just to sit back and watch the village burn, but they didn't need to know that. Itachi simply nodded as he turned around and began to walk away with Sasuke and his team in tow. "Just how did you dash?" "I gave myself the order that I must protect the village at all costs," interrupted Itachi, already knowing what Sasuke was going to say. "It was done by placing a Genjutsu upon myself using Shursui's Manjikyu. His Genjutsu is superior even to my own. Although it also has its own drawbacks," he finished in his mind. "But aren't we threatening the village as well?" asked Sasuke, expecting to fight his brother once more. Itachi glanced at him before he chuckled. "That you are. But so is Kabuto. And I never did specify whom I would go against first, though. This way, the Edo Tensei will be undone, making Itachi disappear as well." But he would have provided support to both us and Konoha at the same time. Realized Sasuke. It's fucking brilliant. Now, Itachi stopped before looking at Karen. If you would please offer us some assistance. Karen nodded before concentrating on finding her target. Suigetsu merely grumbled. What the hell am I? Chopped liver? Mu landed once more and stood next to the Kazekage, now facing the lone Madara. Seeing as this is probably the last time that we'll see each other, let me thank you for everything that you have done, Kabuto, said Madara with a chuckle. You have done exactly what I expected from you. Even through his pissed-off state at the moment, Kabuto heard this through both Mu and the Kazekage as well as from the hidden Mizukage, making him confused. But just what did Madara mean by that? But now, let me thank you for that, continued Madara as his Susanoo began to change, by showing you the Susanoo's true form. Both Mu's and the Kazekage's eyes widened as they gazed at the now gigantic and changed form of Madara's Susanoo. It now looked like some sort of samurai. The Susanoo then drew its sword before swinging it down towards the direction of the revived Hokages, which sent them flying backwards as well as make the actual ground beneath them crack. This also revealed the Mizukage who had been hiding within his summoning, a giant clam. Said clam disappeared in a puff of smoke, having been cut in half from the attack. What the fuck, screamed the Mizukage as parts of his body were blown off as well. Just what the hell is this guy? None of the rest of the Kages had an answer to that question. I'm not through yet, stated Madara Susanoo, prepared to swing its sword again. It was at this time that the revived Kages knew that they had no chance of winning. Gaara could only look at the dark form of Naruto's Susanoo, not believing that the Naruto that he knew had become this. Enkaku no Kenshirashu. Both of the swords from Naruto's Susanoo swung forward, sending a wave of dark energy towards Gaara, who brought his sand forward again. Gaara then grunted in pain as he felt some of the dark energy actually cut through his sand defense as well as his sand armor, cutting right through his real skin. Holding his left shoulder in pain, Gaara saw more of the crimson energy beginning to flare within Naruto's Susanoo. It was at the last second that Gaara sensed Niji's presence from behind him. So busy in focusing on Naruto that he had completely forgotten about the Hyuga. Hakurokujuinshu. Niji brought both of his open palms forward, sending violent blows to where Gaara's chakra points were supposed to be located. Using his sand as support, Gaara managed to stop himself from being pushed back too far but felt extreme pain in his stomach area. He had managed to block off most of the blows by protecting his chakra points with his sand, but not all of them, it would seem. I guess that I shouldn't be too surprised by that, thought Niji as he immediately jumped back out of range from Gaara's sand into one of the tree branches from one of the trees that stood behind the Hokage mountain. Thanks for that, Niji. Gaara's eyes widened as he felt something pierce him. Looking down, he saw one of the swords from Naruto's Susanoo, except that the sword was now coated with the crimson energy as well as with the crimson energy running through it. The Susanoo had simply thrown it at him. Gaara felt the control of his sand leave him as he collapsed on the ground on his back. The sword had been powerful enough to cut straight through his sand armor, it would seem. The dark sword disappeared the next moment as Naruto appeared in front of Gaara, the red markings on his face still present. Niji landed beside him the next moment. How's that for a team-up, commented Niji with a small smirk on his face. As good as any, answered Naruto as he and Niji bumped fists with each other. Naruto then turned his attention to Gaara. So this is it, Gaara. Gaara was silent before asking what had been on his mind this whole time. Why? Naruto sighed again. You know, everyone seems to be asking me that lately. You told me that you fought for your comrades, and yet. Gaara went silent. Naruto grabbed the Saikatsu Gakari from his back before bringing it forward and raising it. And who says that I'm still not? Hearing this caused Gaara to look at him with a questioning look. The only problem is that the comrades that I thought that were my comrades, well, they weren't. They never knew the real me. But the ones that I have now, well, they're different. Niji was silent at hearing that as he remembered how Naruto had actually saved his life when Gaara had first attacked him. I have new comrades now. That's all there is to it, stated Naruto. Gaara chuckled humorlessly as he closed his eyes. And here I was planning on saving you like you saved me those years ago. My darkness is just simply too big for you to erase it. Or well, for anyone really, replied Naruto. I see. You might actually be stronger than me, Gaara, said Naruto softly. After all, you managed to get over your own hatred for your village as well as for its people while I couldn't. But I'm still moving forward with what I'm doing. I chose this, and I'm prepared to see it through to the end as well as for the consequences that it will bring as a result of my decision. With that, Naruto brought the Saikatsu Gakari down on the ground, stabbing Gaara right through his chest before the said redhead turned into ash. Gaara, said Niji with a sigh. He was just simply fighting for what he thought was right, responded Naruto as he placed his sword on his back again. We just simply switched places, except that unlike me, he couldn't bring me back. Niji simply glanced at Naruto, not knowing exactly what was going on in the Uzumaki's mind. You can come out now, said Naruto, making Zetsu appear on the ground in front of the duo. White Zetsu pouted slightly, making both Naruto and Niji cringe at the sight. It wasn't a pretty one, after all. I told you that we had already missed it, said White Zetsu. Shut it, was the response from Black Zetsu. Did you find him? Asked Naruto. We did, answered Black Zetsu. He's hiding himself in one of the underground bases that most likely belonged to Orochimaru when he was still in Konoha for his experiments right underneath the center of the village. Underneath the center of the village, repeated Niji in his mind. I don't know whether that's stupid or brilliant. You better hurry though, continued White Zetsu. We don't know if he sensed us or not. Naruto simply nodded before looking at Niji. I need for you to find me, Anko. I don't like the fact that she hasn't turned up yet. About that, began Black Zetsu, causing Naruto to look at him. Kabuto actually has her right now. Is that so? Said Naruto with an unreadable tone in his voice. Do whatever you have to do then, Niji. I have to pay someone a visit right now. With that, Naruto disappeared in black flash. Niji could only chuckle as he turned around and made to walk back to the village. I pity Kabuto already. Zetsu simply sunk back into the ground, intent on seeing what would happen. Okamitachi. Yujito jumped into the air in order to dodge the heavy air currents that were sent by Temari, who was dressed in the standard Jonin uniform from Suna. Temari then proceeded to send even more gusts of winds toward the airborne Kunoichi from Kyumo. So she's a long-range fighter, is she? Thought Yujito as she inhaled deeply. Fire style, Gokakyu. The fireball immediately consumed the gusts of winds, making it even more powerful as it made its way towards Temari. Seeing this, Temari immediately pushed Chakra to her feet in order to jump backwards in order to dodge the attack. I'm at a disadvantage here, thought Temari as she came to a stop. Fire beats wind, of course. Well, under normal circumstances at least. Yujito landed gracefully on the ground as she focused on the Suna Kunoichi in front of her. All around them, the rest of the Suna shinobi were trying to fight back the fully transformed bee, only for them to be swatted away like flies by one of the tentacles. It seemed like B was having fun, if his slight humming was any indication. He was most likely thinking of new rap lyrics while fending off the Suna shinobi. Yujito and Temari had a stare-off for about 5 seconds before Temari swung her fan forward and sent an even bigger torrent of winds. Yujito scowled at this. I'm really starting to hate that damn fan of hers. Yujito then got on all fours before jumping to the side to stick to one of the walls of the buildings around them in order to not get hit by the winds. Temari then swung her fan again, creating even more gusts of winds and sending them towards Yujito again. That does it, screamed Yujito in anger and frustration as she pushed Chakra to both her feet and hands as she pushed herself off the wall and into the air. Stop moving so much, damn it, screamed Temari. You stop swinging that damn fan of yours so much, retorted Yujito as she landed on the spot that she had been before on the ground, still on all fours. Temari scowled before she bit her thumb and ran it all across her fan. Stop playing too much already, kitten, screamed Matatabi in Yujito's mind. I want out now. Yujito sighed mentally before nodding. Temari then swung her fan yet again, except that this was different from before. Kuchios, Kirikiri Mai. An one-eyed sickle holding a weasel appeared as an enormous torrent wind appeared behind the said summoning who rode through the wind. Matatabi's chakra began to surround Yujito before she fired her own attack. Nazumi Kedama. The mouse-shaped fireball split itself into smaller and deadlier parts that all took the same mouse shape before it came in contact with Temari's attack. The fireballs all flew around Temari's attack, going straight for the said Sunakunoichi. Seeing this, Temari prepared to jump upward, which we did, only for the fireballs to chase right after her. They're tracking me, thought Temari in realization as she brought her fan forward, prepared to fight them back. Which she did for a few, only for one to be able to hit her, which caused an explosion in the air, which was amplified by the rest of the fireballs coming in contact with her as well. Temari's summon was simply squashed by a giant blue flame-covered foot that belonged to none other than Matatabi, who didn't even flinch when the rest of the attack hit the foot that had been used to crush the summon. A badly injured Temari landed on the ground with a thud, her body covered completely in burns. Seeing this, Matatabi's mouth opened before shooting a massive fireball at the downed Temari, which engulfed her immediately, burning her alive. Let's do this, Gyuki, screamed Matatabi while looking back at the eight-tailed octopus. Gyuki nodded as Matatabi stood next to him before they prepared a combined tailed beast ball. Those who saw this were immediately on the run as the bigger-than-average attack was shot, destroying many buildings in the area in the process, engulfing the area in a big explosion. Outside of the village in the forest that it was surrounded in, another confrontation was taking place between the samurai from the land of Iron and the shinobi from the village of Aim. One Uzumaki Mito could only scowl as she cut through another samurai with a kunai in hand before Fuka appeared behind her, the two redheads standing back to back with each other. So it seems that the samurai really did join in, commented Fuka with a kunai in her hand as well as she looked all around her, stating the obvious. Well, Kushina did kill their leader, responded Mito with a frown on her face. But we've been delayed by this too long. I want to get to Konoha as soon as possible before Naruto destroys it by himself. Mito-sama, screamed one Aim shinobi on top of a tree behind them. I see Konoha, although it's currently being attacked by what appears to be a giant octopus and a cat as well as dragons. Fuka blinked dumbly at hearing that. The Hachibi and the Nibi, is it, thought Mito. So, has that Uchiha arrived in the village already as well? But for the dragons, something tells me that Naruto is behind that. I'm just going to take that in stride, muttered Fuka. We need to get going then, said Mito out loud before finding the two individuals that she was looking for fighting a good distance away from them. Rashi, Han, we need to cut through these samurai this instant. Both Jinchuriki simply nodded as they finished killing the last of the samurai that they had been fighting against before red chakra began to surround them both. Another named shinobi appeared in front of both Mito and Fuka with an alarmed look on his face. Mito-sama. We have shinobi from IWA approaching from our rear. Mito scowled heavily at this. Damn you, Anoki. What are we going to do now? Asked Fuka with a frown. We're going to let our heavy muscles take care of them, replied Mito as she looked at both Rashi and Han. Seeing where Mito was going, Fuka smirked. We're almost there, thought Mito as she gazed at the direction of where Konoha stood. Almost there before all of this ends. Kabuto was not in a good mood right now. No sir, he was not. He was in a bad mood. No, even worse than that. He had underestimated Itachi. And now, he was praying for the price. Kabuto could only grind his teeth together in anger as he felt all of his beads on the board in front of him crack in tiny pieces save for the ones that belonged to Itachi and Madara. Not that it matters anyway. He didn't have any control of either Uchiha at this point. Not only that, but he had just lost the Kages as well as Jiraiya now. It was not looking good for him right now. I'm going to have to use her now, thought Kabuto as he looked back at the still unconscious Anko laying behind him. It was then that his danger senses went off as a dark flash appeared in front of him. Kabuto jumped back at the last second but felt a cut appear on his right cheek as well as some of his strength leaving him. Who dash? Knock, knock, it's your friendly neighborhood Uzumaki, said Naruto with a feral grin as he placed his Saikatsu Gakari on his shoulder. Kabuto frowned as he looked at Naruto in his crouched position. How did you find me? You don't have to worry about that, replied Naruto as his grin grew, because you're going to die right now anyways. Kabuto chuckled as he stood up. It doesn't matter now, I guess. I've been waiting for this chance all along. Now, I will finally have those eyes of yours, Naruto-kun. Naruto's face grew disgusted. Would you mind not adding the kun? It's really creepy, you know. But Kabuto didn't respond. Instead, he merely readjusted his glasses. Before they could continue, however, two blurs landed beside Naruto. Naruto smirked lightly while not taking his eyes off Kabuto. So you two are here too, eh? Good to see you too, said Itachi from Naruto's left with a chuckle. Was all Sasuke said from Naruto's left. Now Kabuto was not enjoying his chances. Not only Naruto, but Sasuke and Itachi as well. Even he wasn't arrogant enough to say that he could take all of them at the same time. I'm not even going to ask how you're even free, began Naruto as he glanced at Itachi before turning to look at Kabuto again. But welcome to the team. It's an honor, replied Itachi with some humor laced in his tone as he too looked at Kabuto. Shall we get this started, said Sasuke with a dark grin as his eternal Manjikyu activated. That is something that we can all agree on, said Naruto with a chuckle. Never would have Naruto expected to team up with both Itachi who had been hunting for his bijou in the past and Sasuke who had left the village while almost killing him as well. Karma was a true bitch. And so it begins, muttered Kurama.